going to the ground level with Power Apps, and we are trying to find as many people that know absolutely nothing about Power Apps, or they feel like they're a beginner with Power Apps. And we are going to cater to you guys. So I know I at least want to go an hour, maybe longer, if we can handle going longer. And so I do have some panelists in here. If you guys would like to go live, be on the live stream, just message or share your video. So Rick, how you doing?
Doing good.
Okay, there, I heard you. At first, I couldn't hear you. Well, it's great to have you on, Rick.
Oh, doing good. How you doing?
Yeah, pretty good. And so, Kurt, you've got your name. Kurt, your name is Darren. It looks like on. I think.
Yeah, I'm Darren. I'm Darren.
I think it's because we share an account, maybe, or something. But so it's so awesome to have you guys on. So yeah, if you the other panelists, if you want to come on, just share your video, and we'll bring you on. So let's talk. Let me just change the view here. Okay, this is sort of cool. All right, I see Armor. Hey, yeah, so great to have you guys on there. I see Nick, so feel free to join if you like, Nick. So so Kurt, do you have any advice for the absolute beginner with Power Apps? Let's say you've never logged into Power Apps at all. Would you have, like, just off the top of your head, what would you describe Power Apps as? What is it good for? And maybe why is it exciting?
Well, so first of all, if you're just trying to get started into Power Apps, just don't think about programming. Think about more about your Excel spreadsheets, and think about how you were trying to use that to create formulas and try to take that Excel to another level, because I think that's what Power Apps did. It took the Excel spreadsheet and put steroids to it, right? So now you got not just cells that you're creating, but you're actually creating objects. You're bringing objects and and other things into the mix. So then, if you take that, and you step into that, you try to remember some of your programming days. For some of you guys that have been programmers, remember some of the stuff from Visual Basic and all that, and things together, and it's really just from that point on, just don't let yourself get too overwhelmed within all the changes, with all the new things that are going to go on. Allow yourself to go in there and play. Allow yourself to create things on the canvas and try to tie things together, experiment, play around with it. Just remember that you're not going to break everything, so just go in there and allow yourself to make some mistakes, and don't get overwhelmed in the moment, Yeah,
you made a really good point. Yeah, Kurt, you made a great point about, forget about programming for a moment. Almost everybody's familiar with spreadsheets. Spreadsheets, what would you say they're designed for? For financial information, budgets, and numbers for accountants, that type of stuff. But people use Excel spreadsheets as a database all the time, right? And some of you may have been using spreadsheets and not realize that you're actually creating a database. Would you agree with that statement, Kurt?
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't originally created for that, but we've taken it to that level, right? I mean, way back in the days of Lotus 1, 2, 3. For some of you guys that are out here, I see,
you're dating yourself there.
I've got some people trying to figure out how to get in here. I'm trying to direct them. They're on my other system over here asking me how they get in, so I'm trying to help them through that. So give me just a moment. That's why.
Yeah. So I'll just drone on. Or I'll ask Rick and Armor, what have you guys used spreadsheets to manage your data?
Not really, not much, until I was learning about Power Apps. So that's when I got into it. And then later on, when I started watching your videos, I kept the Excel sheet aside, and I was like totally into SharePoint.
Okay.
That's what I
Rick,
did.
have you ever managed any data with any of the stuff that you do in your life, personal or business?
Yeah, I have some kind of more like informational, nothing like accounting wise or anything like that, but just kind of keeping inventory or keeping track or stuff like that, and just and I even use it for signups and things like that. Just kind of found a way to make it look just a little nicer, for um, just in all different kinds, I guess, of ways.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And so typically what we do, and I'm keeping an eye on there's Michelle. There's Michelle. And so what I was going to say, I'm going to go ahead and if you hide your video, I'll just go ahead and mute you or take you off. But if I see your video, I'll try to bring you on. With spreadsheets, typically, your very first row, you typically put all the column names. Okay, so if you're keeping a spreadsheet of all your contacts, I had an auto detailer come to my house to like wash my car and make it look nice. And I walked out. I'm like, I have a question for you. I just started with Powerapps, and I walked up. I'm like, how do you manage all of your contacts? And he just held up his phone and he said, I just put them on my phone. I'm like, how do you separate your personal contacts from your business contacts? It was all just put little lightning bolt emojis beside them if they're a business. And I'm like, oh man. I said, let me create a Powerapps application for you. And I created this awesome little portrait oriented app for him, and he loved it. And maybe at some point I'll actually share it on the channel because it's a great little app. Hey, Jeff.
There's Jeff.
Yeah, and I see
Here I am.
I see Chris
Glad to
down
see
there.
you made it.
So if you guys show your video, I'm going to bring you on. If I don't see your video, I'll take you off just in case you want to come on and go off of that type of thing. So also, this is a live stream as well going on YouTube. So I'll be keeping an eye on the chats as well. So yeah, so a lot of people, a lot in the business world or even nonprofit any type of organizations, or even in your personal life, you keep track of the data in your spreadsheets. But a lot of times what you ultimately want is like a user interface that you could enter the data into that's a little nicer than a spreadsheet, because as you're filling out your own spreadsheet, you're creating your own data. You typically know what type of information should go in that cell. But if you say phone number and you expect just the numbers to be in there, you don't want any dashes or parentheses in there. You know what you expect to be in there, but it's hard if you share a spreadsheet with somebody and they start entering all the other characters and extensions, and maybe they put like, oh, this is this person's cell number. So there's all kinds of alphanumeric data. It's really hard to sort of lock down what type of data as the data is being input, and as your data grows, it becomes much more important to you. It's the lifeblood of any organization, or so it's really important. As that data grows, it becomes more and more important, and you really want to safeguard the data integrity and the format that goes in there. So the solution to that is to create an application where, in order to add data, edit records, delete records, view a report, view a listing, all that type of stuff. If you build an app around it, you've got so much more control over the data being entered, how it's being viewed, how it's being used. Maybe you're showing social security numbers, which I would recommend to not take lightly, is that you could actually just display the last 4 digits, or have a certain format to something. So Kurt, is there any more that you can sort of add to that? I know we really complement each other well. With our
okay, so in terms of control, is that what you're talking about as far as moving up from spreadsheets? Is that what you're looking at trying to show them?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's what happens when you have spreadsheets. You're dealing with cells that can create any kind of data. Now, we talk a lot about data types, and that might be the single, and I'm really glad you brought that topic up, Darren, because that's probably the single most important and hardest thing for people to get their minds wrapped around, is the different types of data that can go into these things. And why do we have different types of data? If you take the numbers, numerics like numbers like 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, we think about adding those two things together. And so if you say 2 plus 2 is going to equal 4, right? But there's also a letter number, the letter number 2. The number 2 letter, and the numbers can be represented as letters, like you said, phone numbers. And so then when you try to add those things together, it's not going to equal 2 plus 2 equals 4. It's going to equal 2 plus 2 equals 22. You're going to actually splicing those letters together to make a longer, we call it a string. Mm-hmm. So it's really important when you're thinking about moving up from your spreadsheet level type things to know what kind of data you're dealing with. And the problem with working with spreadsheets is you don't have any control over the data. You don't have control over the data type is what I'm trying to say. You got control over the columns, but you don't have control over what the type of data is. Sometimes it's going to be a number. Sometimes it's going to be a letter. In the deep, dark recesses of your computer, it's really what they call a variant. And what it does is it assumes whatever kind of thing you're going to put in, and it's going to try to that out based on what you're working with. So when you're bringing this thing up to Powerapps, you're going to actually, there's a spreadsheet right there. And I just to digress just a second, Darren, I just did a video on this thing, right? About looking how easy this thing is, and maybe that would be something really good for these guys to watch too. at some point. It might help for the people that are just getting started in this thing. So,
yeah, I've been.
Go ahead, Darren.
Yeah, I was just going to say, by the way, guys, Kurt's creating a lot of great beginner level content, and he's already created, I think, maybe 3 or 4 videos that I've been working on the editing of getting those sort of, I want to make sure they're really nice before I upload them, but those are coming very soon. So I just wanted to say something about that.
Yeah.
And while you're talking, Kurt, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create some sample data. Would you say it's important if you're thinking about creating an app just to start with your data? Is that typically what you've done over the years, or is that not a good idea?
That's what I always do. Now, I'm also okay because I understand there's arguments on both sides of that, and it might be good to do some mock-up, like in your mind. Maybe Jeff, when you're out there cutting some grass, or you're working out there in production or something, or you're doing something at work, you might have in the back of your mind you're working with this program, this idea that you got in your head. It might be good to go ahead and sketch out your screens to make it look like so you got user input. But then I would go directly over to the data from that point and map out exactly what things are you going to try to store. What is your program going to need to keep, and then that's what you put in there into the in like your spreadsheet. When you're working with the spreadsheet that you got up there, you're gonna try to think, what kind of data, what information am I going to need to keep in that program, but then also try to think about, well, some of that data can actually be calculated from within in there. So I don't need to store all that information. So in other words, I might bring a first name and a last name, but I don't need a short name or a full name stored in there, because what I can do is I can take the first name and the last name, and I can actually create I can create a full name from that by adding the two fields together. So so try to think about what you might need to keep and what your program is going to need to use. And then from that point, then you can go to your screens. Aren't you afraid you asked me that question, Darren?
Because I like it.
I could just go on and on and on about this stuff, man. So
what I like about how we work together, Kurt, is that I could ask you a question and you go down, on a topic that is actually a good topic that I wouldn't have even thought to say. And while you're talking, I can do stuff like I bring up a spreadsheet and I start to show people examples of what we're talking about. So what I'd like to use as an example today is just keeping track of students. Okay, so a school could use this. I could use this, but hopefully you can see this as an example where you could use it for any type of app that you're thinking about building. Okay, so let's start with the data in mind here. So I'm just going to create like a sample record here. I might say john@go.com, and we'll say 555-867-5309. Does anybody know that phone number? Date registered. There's an 80s song. I think the name of the song is Jenny. All right, so we got some sample data. Kurt, are you ready for your mind to be blown this morning, as well as everybody's mind to be blown this morning?
Maybe. Whenever he says that to me, I always got to worry about that because, boy, that means it's going to be a lot of work for Kurt coming up. Okay, so go ahead. What do we got going on here?
You're right. Okay, so when I build an app with people here online in a video or whatever, man, I need some good data. I don't want to sit there like, okay, here's my app. It's got 2 records. You know what I mean? So we need some good sample data. What?
Don't tell me you're going to bring in ChatGPT.
I could, but I was disappointed. I was disappointed with ChatGPT about generating data earlier this week.
Underwhelmed would be a great word.
Makaroo. What does Kurtaroo think about Makaroo?
I like it. I don't know if it's Picasso, but I like it.
All right, so this is a website that I found up from my buddy Matthew Devaney. In my opinion, he's got the best blog out there on Powerapps, so you might want to check him out, Matthew Devaney. So I want to generate some data. Let's create a uppercase ID.
Now, for you guys that are just getting started with this thing, he is doing some advanced stuff right now. Okay, so like don't think you've got to know how to use all these apps like Makaroo. I mean, it's kind of cool. Maybe if you guys are recording this or get the recording later on from this, to remember this, like you can use this if you need to create some data in your app. But you could just go into Excel and just do it the old school way and just type a few names into the fields, just to make sure you got a little bit of data, if this is over. I just don't want you guys to get overwhelmed in this moment.
Yeah, this is meant to be an absolute beginner's guide to Powerapps, or the beginning of a bunch of videos in a series. And I don't want you guys to look at this Makaroo. Okay, now I got to learn this thing called Makaroo. And you're like taking notes, like, okay, What do I do with this? Don't worry about it. Because
Darren is probably like the strongest power user I've ever met. So he does this thing. This is like normal stuff for him. He doesn't realize that he probably looks at this like this is beginner stuff, but it really,
You're right.
he's right. So I just want to make sure you guys aren't getting over.
Yeah, it's actually human nature. If you're an expert, everybody's an expert in something,
Sure.
As you become more of an expert about a topic, the longer that you've been an expert in it, the more out of touch you are with how you were when you first began. True. So I'm not just looking at when I was first learning Powerapps. I should be considering what it was like back in 1998 when Kurt was teaching me everything I knew.
Right.
Right. So thank you for bringing that up, Kurt. So yeah, as I'm stepping through this, I'm trying to generate data so I can teach you guys better here. So don't worry about it. But if you're interested in generating data, you probably already have a spreadsheet laying around that you could bring in. Okay. So, and then I have a little side agenda, which is to knock the socks off of Kurt here.
Another example, another way to do this would be just to go into your Dataverse, and they actually have tables sitting out there that you could use as sample data if you wanted to. That's just another option if you wanted to try to play.
Remind me in a moment to bring up Copilot for this data in about 10 minutes, if you don't mind. Okay.
Sure.
And I'm just keeping an eye on all the chats, making sure that we're engaged here. Okay, so we have ID row number. First name is a first, so it understands the first and last name. Okay, here's a phone number. It said IP address. Well, I don't want to keep track of my student's IP address. I want to keep track of their phone number. Okay, look at this. I clicked on that. Look at all this, Kurt. Do you see all that? Isn't this wild? I think it's
kind of nice,
huh? Awesome tool. Okay, so what I'm going to do is say phone here. Oh, look, here's the phone number, and it's good that it works with international. So United States is, I always see +1 as a phone number, but there we go. Now we can pick the format. Look at that, Kurt. Cool. Let's make international. Make it international with the parentheses and everything. Okay, that looks great. I like that. So I'm just going to keep things really simple. I'm just going to go with this. How many rows do we want to generate, Kurt? Maybe 1,000.
Maybe or 10.
I wonder with a free account if it'll allow me to do that. I hope so, because eventually I want to use this data and show that how to work with delegation issues too. You know what?
Sure.
We might want to keep track of city. So guys, keep in mind, in any type of application, more than likely, you are going to want to keep track of people in some way. So think about this. These are all the different pieces of information that you want to keep track. City, state. Okay. I'm going to go with abbreviation, I think. Well, maybe not. Because I'm thinking internationally. Okay. City, state, zip. And here, I'll say zip. And for zip, what about postal code? All right, I think I'm done. I've gone. I have enough fields.
See, so what Darren's done is he's actually got this in mind. He's got this app that he's wanting to create, and he's got it going on in the back of his mind. He's been going through his day and he's been thinking this thing through, and now he's actually trying to go in there and map his data out. He's actually going out there and getting data. You know, like you could do it both ways. You could use this program right here to do something like that, but you could also use your Excel spreadsheet to do that. And you heard him thinking this through. Maybe I need the state. Do I want the abbreviation of that state or not? Do I want the zip code? I think the city would be helpful. You know, he's going through there trying to collect this data, and he's forming this stuff up as he's going. You know, and that's really how that's how you're going to be operating. That's how you're going to be designing your programs. You know, you might sometimes in a corporate level, you might actually be writing all this stuff out. A lot of times you're just going to be going through your day, just thinking this thing through. Or maybe you're Michelle and it's 10 o'clock at night and she's thinking, oh, I can't go to sleep because I got this data in my mind, man. I got to figure this thing out. Right. So she's got to go out there and she's going to put it out there in her spreadsheet or whatever, just to kind of get it started. You know, that's actually how the program, that's how your program goes from a baby program into an adult, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know if you saw what I was doing here, Kurt, but on a free account, unless I register, I can only do 1,000 records, which is fine for this session here.
Yeah.
So I did that. I hit generate data, and it gave me a lot of weird stuff for state. And I mean, the city, is that really a name of a city with those weird characters? I don't know. Maybe I should also have country in there. But I think what I'd like to do is sort of restrict this to state.
See, you know, Darren, I almost like the idea of having those weird characters go in there so that you can actually make your program be able to handle that kind of stuff.
Okay, you know? I like it. I'll keep it. Now zip is a little weird looking here, but you're right. I'm gonna use the data. I'm gonna work with imperfect data because there's no such thing as perfect data, right, Kurt?
Yes, there is. Yes, there is. There's a perfect world, as Jessica used to say in her Power BI lectures. You know, we all live in a perfect world. You guys know that. You guys that are watching this, you guys know we live in a perfect world where nothing really bad happens, you know. Of course, some of you guys have already turned the show off now. After listening to that, they said, oh, okay, we're done here. We're done here. Yeah, that's going to happen. Perfect data is going to happen about maybe 1% out of 100, right? One time out of 100.
Yeah. So
maybe
something I wanted to show you guys is you have a spreadsheet. You want to select all the data that you have. So I went down to there might be a easy way of doing this, but I wanted to select all the data. Maybe if I hit Control A, but I think it selects a lot more columns and rows than just 1,000 in the columns I have here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here to the toolbar. It says Format as Table. Okay. And I'm going to go in here. And it really doesn't matter what colors and format you pick. I'm just going to select one. Okay. And it says my table has headers. Okay. Yeah, it does. I'm going to click OK and discover more about your data. And so it's already, Excel's already set up for people that want to analyze data in Excel. So they're like, analyze data. I don't want to do that right now. Okay. So I formatted all this as a table, and a table is simply something with columns and rows, but it's a special definition here in Excel, and especially for Power Apps. Because if you try to bring an Excel spreadsheet into Power Apps, it's going to say, I don't see anything, unless it's been formatted as a table. Just keep that in mind, okay? Now, essentially, I mean, later on, you'll learn that Excel is not a good data source. But for the basics of learning, since everybody knows what Excel is, that's why I'm using it, okay? So what I'm going to say here is students.
Say, hold on just a second. I just want to kind of throw something out there, Darren, if I can.
Yeah.
When you're talking about these tables, some of you guys are wondering what a table is and what's the point. So you see, we've talked about the Excel point, and you got these rows and columns of data, and but you'll notice at the top, what makes this a table is that at the very top you have a header. That header is what they call it in a table. So I guess I want to back up just a little bit. When you're working with Excel, you're working with a different terminology. You're using worksheets, okay? And you're using columns and rows, right? And then you have cells. That's what you're working with in an Excel when you're dealing with Excel terminology. But what we're going to do is we're going to move this over to a database type terminology when we talk about tables. Tables that's a database word. A table is the same as in Excel would be a worksheet. So in the database world, it's a table. And instead of rows and columns, we're going to have records and fields. A field is going to be the row. And you'll notice at the very top of your worksheet up there, you'll have on the rows, you have those column headers. Those would be called field names in a table.
Yeah.
Those would be called field names, or column names in a spreadsheet. Are you guys following me? Is that making sense to you?
I'm watching the chat.
So then you have rows. You have rows in the worksheet. Those are going to be records. So every record in a table is going to have a collection of fields that are related to that record, and that record only. And then the very next row is going to be a collection of fields for that record, and so on. So you have records and fields in a database table. And so what you're doing in this Excel spreadsheet is you're formatting that so that when Powerapps brings it in, it can actually see it in the database terminology, not in the worksheet terminology that Excel's using,
Yeah.
And so I kind of just wanted to explain that to you guys so that you guys can see the relation between a spreadsheet or a worksheet and a database table. And of course, we could take that one more step. So you have a database table, and then you have a database. A database would be just like a whole bunch of workbooks in Excel. If you had a collection of worksheets in Excel, that would be your entire collection of tables in a database. So it's a one-to-one direct relationship, and I just wanted you guys to see that.
Now, Kurt, what's the difference between a spreadsheet and a worksheet? Or can you tell us what a worksheet is?
Okay, well, to me, they're the same. Okay, now maybe I'm wrong about that, but from what I understand, a worksheet is going to be like sheet one right there.
There you go. Yeah.
So that's your sheet one.
I think of a spreadsheet file can have multiple worksheets at the bottom. So these little tabs at the bottom. Right. That's what my definition. I don't know if that's the official Microsoft definition or
I think so. And that would be a database in the database world. Would be all the tables put together. You might have a customer name, you might have a customer table, a product table, and maybe 15 other tables in there, and all that together would be a big collection called a database. Yeah.
So let's create a fresh new blank app here. Okay. Now, here's some good basic information about Powerapps. You open up Powerapps. Now you look at my URL at the top, make.powerapps.com, and you sign in to whatever organization that you've been a part of. If you're one of my students, one of my accelerator students, where we commit to you for a full year, make sure you get to whatever Powerapps goal that you have with group tutoring. We already have our own environment. So I set up each student their own environment, their own Dataverse database, their own SharePoint site. So you have an account to log in as. So if you're working at an organization, you might want to ask your IT department to allow you to use Powerapps or to give you the information to get in. But if you go to make.powerapps.com, sign in with your work or school or organizational email address, you'll be able to get to the screen here. And what I did was, I'll make sure I go nice and slow here, because these people that are watching this video, I want to make the expectation they know nothing. Okay, so if you go here, you see where I have home selected, and it just says blank app, and I just want to show you from a clean slate or a blank canvas what this all looks like. Okay, so there are 3 flavors of Powerapps. Okay, now the one that I deal mostly with is this first type that you see on the left side. It says blank canvas app. Almost all my training is about canvas apps, and I think it's the most exciting part of Powerapps. The next one over is Dataverse, and this comes from the world of Dynamics 365, which is a Microsoft CRM type of system. It is a no-code solution, where Canvas Apps is a low-code. So there'll be some code in there, especially if you hang out with me and Kurt. You might get used to writing code, even though you don't feel like a coder. You might find that you are, and you just don't know it yet. But a Dataverse application, it all looks very boilerplate. You're using these forms, and you really can't do a lot of exciting things, and you're limited on your data source, and it's going to be a Dataverse. Now, perhaps you don't know what Dataverse is, and that's okay. Okay, so it's just a data source that you can use in Powerapps that Microsoft created it to be the premier or the de facto or go-to data source if you're working on the Power Platform. Okay, that's in the simplest terms of how I would define it. Then you've got, they used to call the third one on the right portals, and that's how you create an external facing website with Powerapps.
What's that mean, Darren? What's an external facing website? What is that?
Well, as opposed to like an internet site, in contrast to an intranet website. So if you work in an organization, a lot of times you'll have websites, web pages that only people within the organization can see. Okay. And then if you go to the corporation, the organization's website, the people that are outside the organization or the whole world web can look at, that would be an external facing website.
So like an external facing website would be like Amazon.
Yeah.
Where people from all over the world can log in and use this thing.
Yeah.
But then an internal facing, which is what Powerapps is designed for, it is the internal stuff, which, Amazon customers aren't going to come in and log into your site, your program. But the your employees are, or maybe, so it's about dealing with the tasks that you have in the location that you're working with. Is that a good way of saying that, Darren?
I think so. Absolutely.
Okay.
And I mean, if you think about Amazon as an example, well, they might have a website or a web page within the website that they can go in and modify the items that people can buy on their website. So maybe that would be some internal type of apps that they have that the public can't get to unless they become an affiliate or something like that. So just know that if you're watching my content, most of the time we're talking about Canvas apps, although from time to time I might touch on model-driven and Powerapps portals. Now, for years they've been called, as you see, it says portal right here. For years it's been called Powerapps portals. But they just recently, a few months ago, they created a new product. They took this Powerapps portals and rebranded it as a separate product called Power Pages. Okay. And you may have heard about Power BI or Power Business Intelligence or Power Automate Flows. So do you notice a trend there? They have a whole platform called the Power Platform, and it has all these different components. And right now we're just focusing on the Power Apps portion of the Power Platform. Okay, so I'm going to click on this blank canvas app. Okay, and here I'm going to say test student data. Okay, now you have two choices here, either a tablet or a phone. Essentially what this comes down to is, do you want it to be landscape oriented, or do you want it to be portrait? You know, if you're working on a phone and you want to build an app for your phone, and you want them to hold it like this, and work with the app like this, you would go with a phone. But I always like to use tablet, because it gives you more space if you use it in a browser, of course, right? But if somebody's using it on their phone, all I got to do is turn it sideways, and they can use the landscape oriented. So I always recommend starting with the top, unless you've got a really specific reason to. Somebody says, listen, this app is only going to be used on people's phones. Okay, I'm going to create it as a phone or a portrait. Okay, so I'm going to click on create. And what we'll see here in a moment is a blank slate, or a blank screen, or a play on words here. It's a blank canvas to work on, right?
It's because it's artwork. We are Picasso, and we are building art here. And I guess I just want to say that too. That's one of the big draws for me working with this stuff. It's like you're actually, it's when I'm programming, I feel like I'm creating. When I'm programming, I feel like it's art that I'm making. And I just, I'm sure you guys are probably looking at it from your own angles and everything, but that's kind of the way I look at it. And I really like the term canvas, because that's kind of what we're doing. We're actually painting on this thing. And I don't know, it's art.
Absolutely. I've held many jobs within the IT industry, information technology industry. I've managed servers, I've managed networks, I've built computers. Obviously, I've been a software developer. And why I like app development or app creation the most out of the other IT jobs is that I'm able to use my creativity. Now, you just coming from spreadsheets, you may not think that, but just you wait. You might have a newfound hobby that you just love to do this. If you're watching this video, like, okay, my boss is making me write an app, what's involved here? You might find that you love this stuff as much as Kurt and I do.
Yeah.
So the first thing I want to go over here is the Powerapps Studio. That's what Microsoft calls the Powerapps Studio. And it is we're working here within a browser. Okay. Now there's things here at the top. Now, Kurt actually has, you've already created a video, actually, right, Kurt, that where you go over this thing at a very basic level, right?
I do. In fact, we're actually going down the same path that the video went, really, in a way. Now I go off of it because I go and I use the Dataverse collections, the table collections, as my sample data.
Okay.
So
what I'm going to do is I'm not going to repeat that type of information. If you need more of an introduction of this, I'm going to, direct you guys to check out that video from Kurt, and you'll probably going to see some links. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think you should do both. I think you guys it would really help you guys to look at this and then check out that video too.
There might be some overlap, but yeah.
Oh yeah. And it's always good to have overlap, man. Always good.
Okay. So what I am going to do is, we worked with that data. I'm going to show you how to import it. So there's always this little pane here to the side here. It's called a tree view. It's typically what it's called, but do you see this little icon, 3 lines? In the industry, that's called a hamburger. not the food industry, but the software industry, I guess, right?
Who comes up with this stuff? That's what I want to know.
That is a hamburger, and this thing up here is a waffle. Those 9 dots. So what I did was I just clicked on this hamburger, and hamburger is like a universal way of saying, "Hey, here's the menu." You see that? If you click on that, you'll see all these things here with the words, which is nice if you're a beginner, because if you're just looking at this, or all those icons, well, you're a beginner in any new environment. You want to click on the hamburger to see what's going on here. Okay. So there's like, it's almost like little tabs. What's that? So I called this thing the tree view pane, this pane on the left side, but the pane really isn't the tree view. Tree view is just the main one that you see at first. Got insert, data, media, all that stuff here. Okay. So if you ever hear a Curter, I say, go to the tree view. This is what we're talking about, this very first item. Now, what we can do from the insert menu is we can drop things over here. Okay, there's a label. Okay, here's a button. Okay, and a label. Typically, I put a border around it so you can see what it is, where it begins and ends. Okay. Right now, I don't want to do too much with the insert. Well, we'll come back to that. But if you go to data, this is where you pull in that spreadsheet or whatever data source that you have. Okay. And
yeah, I just want to say something right there, Darren, real quick.
Sure.
That data, I kind of want you guys to think about this when you're looking at a program or looking at this Powerapps. It's pretty much impossible to write much of a program without data. So do this early on. A lot of times people are just like wanting to draw the stuff on the screen and everything, just make the screen look pretty and all that. Get that data in here first, man, because you know you got to have it, because you can't have much of a program without it. You just can't. Go ahead there, Darren.
Yeah.
I just want to throw that in there.
I'm just letting everybody know, if you have any questions as we're going along, I definitely want to hear your questions, but write them down, and at the end we'll have a whole Q&A session for the
or comments. I really like the idea of people commenting on what Darren's hair looks like.
Now, if you're here in the Restream app, you may not we've got private chat, which we'll keep an eye on that, by the way. If you want to start throwing your questions in there, that would actually be a good place to put them. Yeah, let's just do that.
Now, the other question is, when you see that see questions or things from Darren, you're going to wonder which Darren you're talking to. So we got two Darrens going on here right now.
Let me see if I can show people what you're talking about there. You see Darren?
See, I'm Darren too.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's pull in our data here.
Okay.
All right, so let's add data. We're going to pull in the data here. Okay, so that brings up this thing. But I could also hit this button here. Okay, and you see this little icon, these little green icons. That's Dataverse, and we're not ready to deal with Dataverse just yet. What I want to do is open up connectors. Now, if I open up connectors, I'll see a few things here. And what you want to do is click on See All Connectors, and there's over 1,000 connectors out there. Okay, so you can tie in all kinds of stuff. So these are sort of packaged APIs, and APIs is probably an intermediate topic that we actually do have a video on. So if you're in my accelerator program, just go over to the APIs module and you'll see those lessons there. Okay, so what I'm going to do after I've done those two things is I'm going to type Excel. Okay. And now there is an import from Excel. I don't want to import from Excel. I want to use Excel as a data source. Yep. So it says Excel Online Business. Okay, so I'm going to select that. And what this is going to do is it's going to work through my OneDrive, my cloud storage. I'm going to click Connect. And I should probably, when I click on buttons, I should probably put my face down here below. Okay. Oh, look at all this. Okay. So OneDrive for Business, that's actually where I want to go. I think these are a bunch of SharePoint sites. Okay. There's OneDrive. Oh, look at this. Mock data.
Huh.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? Huh. So if you want to pull in an Excel spreadsheet, I'd recommend putting it in your Dropbox. Okay, so right now it's opening that file. Now, the reason why Excel is a horrible data source for a Powerapps application, well, the tables didn't load correctly. Okay, well, we're already running into problems. Let's click on more.
This is one of the reasons why you don't like using Excel. It's funny that we're using Excel as an example, then we're going to say, but don't use Excel. But yeah, it's good though, because the reason why is because a lot of you guys know, you guys have an Excel background. Most of you guys are just getting into Powerapps. You don't know Powerapps, but you know Excel. So that's a good example,
And although Dataverse is probably the best data source,
Yeah.
I mean, I could probably spend an hour just introducing you guys to Dataverse, and then your eyes will glaze over. Because when you learn something new, Kurt, do you find this to be true? Whenever you bring in new information in your learning, you need to attach it to a part of your mind that's already there.
Yeah, you got to meet yourself at that map of the world, right? But more importantly, what is that? What did you say? Eyes glaze over? What's that? What's that acronym that we use all the time?
My eyes glazed over. Mego.
Yeah. Mego. So whenever you hear Mego, that's what that means. My eyes glaze over. Kurt starts talking and Mego hits immediately.
Yeah, I'm an introvert and I'm around a lot of extroverts. Kurt's an example. My wife is an example. And sometimes they talk and I'm listening. And then after a while, my brain, my ADD is like,
oh my God, what do we do?
It was me sometimes.
Right.
But yeah, so that's what that is that we talk about. That's so okay. I'm going to read this error here. Let's try to troubleshoot this. So what, Kurt, you always you actually tell people this a lot, is what you like about my content on YouTube is that I show you how it really is, rather than a sterile, clean environment where no problems exist. Right.
There's a lot of videos that you would probably look at and you'll never see that error message on a video. But Darren, like today, Darren says, well, let's just go in here and build some stuff, and we're going to go do this thing. And then you just never know what you're going to get. That's why whenever he says, Kurt, are you ready for your mind to be blown? I'm like, uh-oh, here we go. That means there's going to be trouble coming. And we just got that. Also, hold on. You were talking about how you could show them the Dataverse, but then that would be, something. Maybe that's something that we can do in the future here. So this Saturday thing is something that we're planning on trying to use on a regular scheduled basis, and we can bring topics into this. And that would be a great Saturday topic. Also, you guys, I want to encourage you guys to start throwing ideas at us. And what would be a good Saturday topic? Something that you guys would really like to learn if you're trying to get started, or something that's really overwhelming you, that you really need help with.
But what I would say is you guys that are here today, you might feel like you're a beginner. You're not going to be beginners for very long at all.
No.
So
not with us.
So anyway, so I think this is a good thing that you guys see that I go through. Yeah. Because if I edit all of my videos and take out this stuff, you guys will get the false impression that everything goes smooth for me all the time. And I mean, if you're here watching me, you're probably regarding me as an expert on this topic, and you're seeing the type of stuff that I come up with. This is being an app creator, being a software developer or a programmer or a coder. Your job description now is a problem solver. You're a problem solver, and you take people's chaos and you bring order to it. They come with all their data problems and all this data, and you need to organize it. Okay. So I want you guys to see how I deal with things. And I'm like, okay, well, let's just look at this and work through it. Graph API is able to acquire a refresh or refresh a lock on the file because it's already locked. Okay. This is the number one reason I don't like to use Excel is because if you have it open in Excel, Powerapps can even touch it.
Yeah, it's locked.
Yeah.
And that's interesting because it's just trying to read it. It's not even using write. It's not even trying to write to the thing. It won't even read it.
Yeah. So I'm keeping an eye on the comments here, and let me reformat this screen here. Looking forward to the weeklies. Very cool. Yeah. Thanks for joining us, Andre. And then too. We also have Ramon. Hello, Ramon from Long Beach. I am advanced in Excel. My spreadsheets have tons of formulas and cell references. Should I relearn SharePoint lists or what is equivalent? Well, Ramon, that is a great question. What I would recommend, a good smooth transition would be to at least, so there's three data sources that I would recommend. Now, you've heard about Excel, which is one that I don't recommend. You've heard about Dataverse, okay, and that's been designed for the Power Platform, okay. So he just mentioned SharePoint list. Okay, that is one that I do recommend if you don't have licensing, like a premium license for Power Apps, or your organization really isn't committed to the Power Platform, but they just turned it on. You know what? Use a SharePoint list. It's much better. It doesn't lock the data. So if you create an app, and I just closed out of Excel, right? And you create this app and you share it with somebody, they're going to get this error. Oh, the data is locked. That's because only one person can be in there at a time. So, but for learning, it's okay. And then the other data source that I would recommend, and it's the most advanced one, and it's also the one I have the most experience with, which is Microsoft SQL Server. So you guys may have heard that before. So that's more advanced stuff, and we have a whole module on that. So that's a really that's almost like the more of the advanced type of stuff.
Yeah, and I am sorely trying to talk him into doing live streams on SQL Server so people can start learning that.
Well, let's get through all these basics, man, so we can jump into it.
Well,
what are you doing?
Just because something says it's advanced doesn't mean it has to be advanced. We can break it down and make it simple. We can take beginners and make it experts,
Absolutely.
And I think that would be a really cool thing for us to do. So I'm gonna have him talked into it. You watch, it's gonna happen.
All right. So is a switch from list to Dataverse purely a data size based decision? No. If you have a premium license, I would jump directly to Dataverse any day of the week.
Yeah.
And the reason to just use SharePoint is that there's already a bunch of SharePoint lists out there in your organization, and people are already entering data in it already. So you might as well just use it where it's at, or you get it in a Dataverse, delete the list, and say, hey, everybody, you have to use my app to get at the data. That would be great. And then I see Nick has a question here. I'm going to copy his comment or question and put it over here.
You can always count on Nick for these good questions.
Yeah.
He comes up with some stuff.
Absolutely. What are the restrictions of using Dataverse in Teams without a full Dataverse license? The big restriction there, Nick, is the size. I think you're limited to only 2 gigabytes. Yeah. So that's the big thing. But I think you get around the licensing requirement, which is really good. It's better than SharePoint there. Okay.
That's a good question, Darren. I've got a question for that.
Sure.
So within that, is there some kind of, how we deal with, when you have so many certain amount of records that you can deal with, like say you break 500 of them, and then it's got to deal with some kind of, it's got to go get help. Does the licensing have anything to do with that availability?
No. So
okay.
There is.
I always wondered that.
Yeah, there is a limitation within Powerapps. It can only deal with, by default, it works only with 500 records at a time. You might scream, right. What? Are you crazy? I got millions of records or thousands of records or whatever. You can go into the settings within Powerapps and change that to 2,000. That's the maximum. You're like, oh, this is junk, man. I got more data than 2,000 records. And what I would say to that is, do you need to create an app that will display all 10,000 records, perhaps, that you have on the screen at once? There is no reason to display 2,000 records on the screen at once. And
almost never.
Yeah. I mean, and if you do, in the case that you do, I would recommend that you use some other type of platform. That's one of the reasons I probably steer you away from the Power Platform. Although, I've worked with those scenarios and it's worked out okay, but I just sort of want to throw that out there. So your licensing doesn't get you any more records to work with. However, Dataverse does, in SQL Server, deals with larger sets of data much more efficiently. And some Powerapps functions, which we'll get to here later, will work differently with Excel, SharePoint, and Dataverse and SQL Server. They work better with those other better data sources. So that's a little caveat I would sort of throw in there to to answer your question.
That's something for future Saturdays.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to try to bring in my student worksheet again here that's formatted as a table. And let's see if it works now. Okay, this looks good. Now, what it looks like it wants to do is insert an auto-generated ID into Excel table, and I'm okay with that. Use a unique column. Yeah, I think I'm just going to have Powerapps sort of throw something in there. All right, so let me click connect. There we go. There's students. So we've got our data in there. Okay. And I'm going to reposition myself here. And so guys, if you see Kurt stop sharing his video, more than likely, he needs a little break or something, and he'll be back here in a moment. So until I see him, I'm just gonna hide him there. All right, so what I'm gonna do is we got the data, but how do we see the data? Well, let's move this label and button over here, or I could just delete it. I'm not ready to work with that yet. There is a control here that you can use, and I'll just type in table. Okay. And so this little insert menu here allows you to pull over or add controls to your screen. Now, whenever you hear that word control, what that is, it's a UI UX component. UI stands for user interface. UX, I think, stands for user experience. Yeah, user experience. Back in the day when I was learning application development, it was called a GUI, or a graphic user interface. Okay, so Kurt, I was just telling him what a control was. Anything you want to add to that?
Nope. I think that was wonderful.
Yeah. So you can type in what you're looking for, like button, or in this case, a table. Now I'm going to click on data table and bring it over. Okay. And the first thing that it wants to do is connect to data. Okay. So I'm going to click on students here.
Yeah. Now in the future, he's going to tell you too that don't use this data table.
Just like Excel.
Just kind of putting that out there.
Yeah.
But it's got its purposes. It's got its purposes though, right?
I'm going to hit Control-0 on my keyboard, and it should have zoomed.
Now, what's Control-0 do, Darren?
What it does is, let's say it's zoomed out like this. It's going to either zoom in, or if you're like really zoomed in here, hit Control-0, it's going to zoom out almost perfectly.
It resizes it perfectly. For you guys that are just getting started with this thing, that's a really good trick and tip that Darren showed me a while back ago, and I thought that was pretty slick. It's a time saver because you go in and you're going to see when you start dealing with a lot of text input, because that's what Powerapps says. It's Powerapps, it's a text input. When you start dealing with a lot of different controls on the screen and you're trying to get them lined up perfectly, and it's important to get things lined up prettily, because that's the first impression that your users are going to see with your app. You want this thing to look nice. So you're going to go in and you're going to zoom in so that you can get exactly right. Well, then you got to bounce back out again, and you don't want to sit there and have to try to take your mouse and adjust the zoom level on it. Just hit Control-0, bam, and it'll knock it right back out for you. It's pretty cool.
Absolutely. And also, speaking about shortcuts and stuff, the very absolute most beginning thing you can learn about Powerapps is hitting F5 on your keyboard. Now, typically in a web browser, that will refresh your web page. So if you're reading, don't just hit F5 right now, because you'll refresh your whole thing and lose the video feed. But there's a little play button up here. Now look at that. Preview the app. And then it says F5. So this is F5. A toggle, guys. So if I click on play, it's going to run the app. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
And then if you want to get out of it, you just click on this little X in the upper right corner, and you'll go back to design mode. Now, I call this design mode, and then when I hit run, I call this run mode. So if you ever hear me use those phrases, that's what I'm referring to.
That's right. Design time and run time. So I guess I want to just take this moment here to if you guys, the people pay big money for this kind of stuff. So make sure you know what I'm about to say. Write down these things. Those hotkeys, write down F5 for run. Hit Control-0. Write down Control-0 for your zoom in and out. Try to memorize these things, because this is going to be so important in your development time. Also, Control-C. What's Control-C do, Darren?
Copy to your clipboard.
Copy your clipboard. So So I want him to show you how to do that with the text input controller labels when you're dealing with a lot of controls. Hit Control C to copy, hit Control X to cut, and hit Control V for paste. So Control C, Control X, Control V. I want you guys to memorize those hotkeys, and then Control 0 to resize and F5 for running. Those 5 things, that's going to be on a test, guys. That's going to be on a test. So make sure you memorize that stuff now. That's going to be good stuff.
When Kurt taught at my local community college, I signed up for his class. He would say, "Listen up, guys. People pay big money for this. That means it was going to be on the exam."
Guaranteed. But yeah, it was funny. You hear all the pencils just being picked up.
Well, a lot of people that took your class, Kurt, they weren't in it for the credit hours or the grade. They were in there to make money with what you were teaching. So you said,
that's right.
People pay big money. Well, everything, whenever you said that, it was true. It was going to be, but so you intentionally put those things on the test that were really important for them to know. So,
and you're right. We're about making money here. This is about trying to make money, guys. The bottom line in this whole thing is
it really is.
We're trying to make money.
I mean, Kurt and I, you and I love this. I hope everybody that's viewing this loves Power Apps and app creation and all that good stuff. But let me give you guys an example. Let's say we like to travel, or we like to travel the world as our passion in life. Okay, and you go to a travel agent like, hey, I want to go around the world and do a world tour. Is the travel agent going to tell you about the nice airplane ride over, or the taxi cab that you'll take to your destination, or the parking garage? Oh, you don't want to hear about that? I thought you liked to travel. Well, no, you want to hear about the destination, hear about the nice hotel or the cruise, or, all those nice things. You don't want to hear about so although we enjoy, maybe, you love to travel, which means that, you're okay with being on a train or a plane, and maybe you enjoy that. Okay. So like how Kurt and I and you guys probably enjoy Power Apps, but what's the end result of this is to make money. If there was no money into it, the amount of people that would be interested in Power Apps or app development would be quite a bit smaller. There'd still be interest, but it'd be a lot smaller. So that's I do like to bring the practicality of why we should know things into this. Okay.
Right. Well, because the two things come together, Darren. They come together because we're actually doing what we enjoy doing. It's a lifestyle change. It's a complete lifestyle change for people. I mean, when you're working, doing something that you love, I hope you guys are half as passionate about this as me and Darren are,
Yeah, absolutely. And so I am so proud of my student, Michelle. And she put it over in the private chat, but I'm going to show her comment here.
She is absolutely amazing. You are, Michelle. You get in there, you go on that school thing. You've always got really good stuff to put out, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Save once, save often. Kurt, have I saved this yet?
Well,
probably not. I know I haven't. Okay, so
maybe that's why she brought that up.
So thank you, Michelle.
She's nodding her head, yes.
Thank you, Michelle. This is so great. Yeah. So I'm going to show you up here at the top. If you don't have, if I click on something, this little menu changes based on what I have selected. So I'm going to click on this weird gray area here just to make sure I have the default menu. And here at the top says settings. And I'm going to click on this and show you something that Michelle is privy to. So these are the settings for my application. Okay. So I can change all kinds of stuff. But if you scroll down a little bit, there's an auto save. Save changes every 2 minutes. This is a browser level setting. Well, that sounds great. I don't got to worry about saving right now, right, Kurt? It saves it every 2 minutes.
Yeah. Doesn't have anything to save though.
That's right. If you don't save it the first time, and let's say you've got it up here and you're working for hours, about 6 to 8 hours, maybe 10 hours, Power Apps will do this thing where it's like, oh, your session expired. Hit refresh, and you hit refresh, and then all your work's gone. Oh my goodness! Don't ever let that happen.
Tell you,
what's that?
Let me tell you, guys. Let me tell you, that's going to happen to you once. It's going to happen to everybody one time. Yeah. You're going to spend. I've done this. I've worked for an entire 8-hour day, and I was just going and going and going. I didn't say the power went out. You know, you can, at that moment, you can scream, you can cuss, you can kick everything you want to kick, but in the end of the day, you're going to have to rewrite all that stuff that you just did. There's just no, might as well just get on it because, didn't save.
And I like Armor's comment. And there you see the row limitation that I just talked about a few moments ago, right there. So you could change that to 2,000, or if you try to change it to 3,000 and hit tab away, oh, you can only put up to 2,000. Okay.
Yeah, I still don't understand. Maybe you can help me with that, Darren.
What's that?
Why don't they just set it 2,000? What's the point of that? Why do they have it set at 500 and you can't go to 2,000?
I think for most applications, when you're working with data, you don't need to see all 2,000, or the data sets might be under most of the time under 500. So whenever it tries to go pull the data, typically it will tell the data source, hey, just give me the top 500 rows, because that SharePoint list might have 10,000 records. Okay. And so it will look at this number here for the setting and say, okay, give me this amount. So as you can imagine, with your internet connection and everything going on the internet, and you're waiting for data to appear on your screen, do you want your users to sit there for a half a second or 3 seconds? You know?
Yeah.
Do you really need all 2,000? What was that?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. So it's bringing all that information into the queue at one time.
Yeah.
So yeah, good stuff, Darren.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit X, and yeah, there's no save button to the settings, guys. So once you change it, you can just exit out. Now that I've showed you that, there's a little save icon up here. What I like to do is hit Control S, because almost every 2 minutes I'm doing a manual save, and there's a reason to do that. So I'm going to click Save here, and let's see what comes up. Sometimes it will have a dialog that says, hey, do you really want to call this test student data? So you have a chance to change it. Sometimes you might see that. Microsoft changes this stuff all the time. Okay, so now it looks like it's currently still saving. I still see the little spinner in the upper right corner there. Okay. Now, I just explained that when I am working on my project here in Powerapps, that I will hit Control S like every 2 minutes.
Absolutely.
And there's a reason for that, which is, are you guys familiar with undo? Control Z, like if you're in Word or Excel or almost any program, you hit Control Z. Let's say you mess something up, you type too much, or you just hit Control Z to undo what you just did. Do not, under any circumstances, count or rely on the undo feature in Powerapps, because it may work. Most of the time it does not work. And hopefully Microsoft gets to the point where it always works and it's always great. But I'm telling you right now, guys, for the past, since Powerapps has been out there, the undo does not work well. Okay. So I've saved it once. It looks like it's still trying to save. I'm going to hit publish just to make sure it really is saved.
So that's another hotkey for you guys to write down, Control Z.
Yeah. So if you're taking notes, you might want to write down all these shortcut keys that we're bringing up. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And memorize those, because it's not just Powerapps. All Microsoft products, right, recognize those hotkeys, don't they? For the most part.
Oh, yeah.
If they apply. Yeah.
Even on if you guys are Apple users or Mac users, you have a lot of the similar type of things as well.
Yeah. So it's universal.
So I'm just going to touch on publishing just for a moment. Publishing is, let's say, do you guys realize the difference if you're working on a Word document or Excel document and you're adding stuff in there and you make saves? That is, the saving is different than sending that document to your friend or your coworker, right? You understand the difference? So that's the difference between saving and publishing. Publishing is, you're like, hey, I want you to take a snapshot of my application as it is right now, and I want you to make that version available to my users. So if I share it with somebody, they're going to use that snapshot. And then after you share it, after you publish and share it, then you can start adding a bunch of more stuff. And they're not going to see all this extra stuff you're doing until you do a publish again. Okay. So I'm going to hit publish just to see. Okay, do you see the save button is done saving? I don't know if that helped it along. Maybe it did. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up a new tab for Powerapps. So make.powerapps.com. I've got a little shortcut there. And here in my environment, you see it says Darren Neese Sandbox. If you're an accelerator student, you have your own sandbox. I'm going to click on apps. Look at that. Test student data. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the ellipsis. Ellipsis is these three little dots there. And I'm going to click on details.
Jeff will appreciate the use of ellipsis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hold on. I got to pull in Jeff.
Yeah.
What do you think about that, Jeff?
It's great.
Okay.
Man of many words there.
All right. So what I'm going to show you guys is that when you say details, you look at the details for this app that we have out there. You can click on, this is the link to the app. So you can share it like that. But what I want to show you is that versions, look at this. So I've got version 1. So it's only been saved once. And that version has been published. That's what you know. Now, what I need to do is I'm going to go back to my application and I'm going to add something to it like a button. Okay. I'm going to hit Control S. Look at that, saving to Powerapps. I love seeing that. And hopefully it doesn't stay up there for too long, but then I can add a rectangle. Okay. Here's my rectangle. I'll put it right here. I'll hit Control S. And okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back over to this tab at the top. Okay, and it still says version 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit F5 on my keyboard, which will refresh the page. Now I have 3 versions. Okay, and that's because I hit Control S, or I hit the save, use the save feature within Powerapps. That is the only way that you get new versions of your application here. Okay, and what's nice about this is that, let's say on this last save, I really mess something up and the undo doesn't work very well. I can go in here and say, well, it was working great yesterday. I spent an hour in here and it's all messed up and I can't get back to how it was yesterday. Yesterday was amazing. So all I'm going to do is I can hit restore. Okay. It's going to be saved as version 4. Okay. It's not going to allow me to because I have it open over here. So you would need to close it if you wanted to do that. But here's some interesting facts. Okay. So now that I saved it the first time, Powerapps is going to start saving it automatically for me every 2 minutes, right? It does not create new versions. If you want new versions that you can restore or undo back to, you need to manually save.
Control S.
Nobody ever told me that. I had to learn that the hard way, guys. And I'm sure, boom, you're new to Powerapps. You already get to know that right up front.
You know what? If you got on YouTube and polled YouTube users that dealt with Powerapps, I bet you less than 1% of the world knows about that. The Control S is the only way to create a new version. That's really good, important stuff, especially when you guys start really working with this thing. Because like he said, you're not going to be beginners for long. You guys are going to start getting really good at this, and you're going to start getting into some complex code. And so what's really good is if you start having that complex code, hit that Control S just before you start. That way, when that complex code just gets sideways on you, you can start back over if you need to, So I like that a lot.
Yeah. So I'm going to bring up a comment, keeping an eye on the comments here. Hello, can you discuss filter topics to include all categories? Yeah. So filter, I would say that's definitely one of the first few functions that you should learn. So we'll be covering that shortly. If we don't get to it this video, it will be covered. If you go to YouTube and search for Darren Neese filter, you'll find my video on it. But otherwise, we will get to that fairly.
Yeah,
soon.
I think that all these database type operations, filtering and sorting and searching, we're gonna cover this on these Saturday mornings. We're gonna get to that in these Saturday mornings. Absolutely.
So what I'm going to do here, we have this data table, and so I'm not seeing any of my data, Kurt. Do you know why I'm not seeing any of my data? I'm sort of wanting to see columns and rows of my data from that Excel spreadsheet, right? And we got 1,000 rows.
I think we need to spend a little bit of time doing some design time setting of the object, of that table object.
Yeah.
That's what you're going to do in this IDE. This is called an IDE, by the way, guys.
What does
and
IDE
inside of this, let's see. What's it mean?
You taught me. You,
Yeah, I know.
You forgot more stuff than I know about software development.
It's an integrated development environment.
There you
is
go.
What it is.
You just needed a moment.
No, I just wanted to see if you knew. So I wanted to play. So so anyway, so there's two things. He mentioned this earlier. There's design time and run time. Okay, so you can set these objects up. That what he just drew on there was a data control object. It's a control, but it's an object, a data table. Yeah. Sorry, thank you. And that data table object has properties on it. Now, every object has properties, and those properties tell you, they describe how this object or this control is going to look and act, right? So what you can do is you can design at design time on that right panel that he's going to show you over there. You can set that stuff up, but also you can do these things at runtime. When you press F5 and this program is actually running, you can set those things on the fly. And we're going to do both, but most of your work is going to be sitting there initializing these things to their value, so that when that screen comes up, when you first press F5, all these values are going to be set up, and you're going to do most of that at design time. And that's what he's getting ready to do right now.
And I want to be very careful with our beginners, Kurt, that when we introduce terms, that we make distinctions. So you were using two words almost interchangeably, and I understood. I just want to make sure everybody understands what is a control and what is an object. Can you talk about that a little bit?
That's real good stuff. You want to go ahead and go down, or you want me to?
Let's touch on the topic for like maybe 30 seconds or a minute, and because I want to get to some type of something on the screen, but you taught me what objects
were. Well, I tell you what. Why don't you get on that screen and I'll go ahead and talk while you're doing that, setting stuff up, or whatever. Anyway, so in my world, a control is something that you can actually visualize and drag and drop on that form. Yeah. Those are going to be controls. Everything you pick, go over there to that. What he's doing right now, he's dragging and dropping. Those are objects. Those are all objects, but those are specific types of objects that are controlled. They actually, you can put them on your forms and use them. An object that's not a control could be something that we'll talk about later on, a variable. I'm trying to think of something that we use right now that is not a control. I guess we have the application itself is an object that is not a control. The app. The thing that we're creating right now is an app, and it's not a control. It's an object,
Yeah. So something I'd like to add to what you're just saying there, Kurt, is you just said the app is an object. So I just released a video, I believe it was just yesterday or the day before, for the host object. So if you do a search for Darren Neese host object, you'll see that. And I talk about the host object. And so these are things and that you can reference in your application with code. Now, the distinction, the most simplistic distinction I can make between the words object and control is that a control is an object that has a user interface element to it. So a button is an object, but the user can interact with it, graphically on the screen. You know what I mean? Let's say an app, the app is an object. Okay. Host is an object. So if I go over here and let me bring in a label control, or a text label is what it's called in Powerapps. And I go up here to the expression bar, and we could spend a whole hour on this little bar up here. Okay.
And we will in the future.
Yeah. Yeah. And so this is like Excel. I say host dot OS type. What's my OS? Oh, I'm on Windows. So an object has properties. Okay. Just like a physical object out in the real world, like a car or a table, has properties. What's its color? What is its shape? What is its size? Okay. So when you click on these things, even things that you can reference, like the host, you can, up here in the expression bar, you can select it. And sometimes it will tell you even more about it. Okay. But let me show you. So I had this control here, this label. There's a little drop down right here. This shows all of the properties that you can look at and change. Okay. So for a label, we've got, there's the text. Okay. And you can look at, you can change the colors and all kinds of stuff. Okay. So what I'm about to do, why we had to sort of go through all that, is because we're going to change a property of this data table here. That's so important that we're having a hard time getting around to, because we need to cover all the prerequisites in a way of what a property. Well, what we have to talk about what an object is, and then a control, and then the control and objects have properties. So if I go over to the right side of the screen, there's a whole pane on the right side called the property pane. So if you click on something, okay, so you could have a button here, or you could have a data table. You click on the data table. It has a property called fields, okay, and you click on edit fields, and you have this thing, okay. And what you want to do, you don't see any data. Well, I know I've got 1,000 records. Let's click on add a field. Oh, here's all my fields: city, email, first name, gender, ID, last name, phone, state, zip. Maybe you don't want to display all of them. In this case, I sort of do. I want to show you all the data. I'm going to click on add, and let's see what happens. Oh, look at all that. Would you look at that? Look at that, Kurt.
Just
You're
look
not
at it.
say anything, are you?
I said just look at it.
Just look at it. All right.
Just look at
Me
it.
and my humor. All right. So look at that, guys. So we've got our data. Look how easy this is. Is this not easy, Kurt? What do you guys think of this?
Oh, that's the name of it. That's the name of a video I just made.
Yeah, it is. And I'm
how easy
working
this
on
is.
the editing, so that will be available soon. Okay, so what I'm going to do over the tree view over here on the left side, I'm going to click on the table. Okay, make sure that it's selected. Okay, and I'm going to move this over a little bit, and I'm going to blow everyone's mind here. You ready? I'm going to add something. Again, this is something. So I'm showing you guys the training wheels of Powerapps, but eventually, in a few sessions, I'm going to ask that you start taking away the training wheels and learn how to do it for real. Okay. So data table is something that I recommend you use something instead called a gallery. Okay. That's what is the really good control to use for listing data. But the data table is good for quick, little simple, just show me the data, you know. There's another control out here that is like that I don't use this in any of my applications anymore. I did when I first started out. And if you're going to learn Powerapps, you really do need to know how to use a form, F-O-R-M, a form within Powerapps. But as you get to be more intermediate, I recommend start to use something instead called a patch. I just mentioned it so that when you hear me talk about patch in the future, you'll know what I'm talking about. And yeah, so Andre says, woo, or whoa, galleries. Yeah, galleries is a whole big topic. We could talk an hour or two just on galleries. So what I've added over here.
Galleries are so exciting. You guys are going to love galleries. Oh, yeah. If you guys don't know what a gallery is, you're going to love it. Yeah. It's so versatile. There's so much you can do with it.
It is. I like to give my things borders so I know where they're at. And then, okay, so a form, it allows you to either view or edit one record, not multiple records, just one record. Okay. Where a data table on the left side, or if you use a gallery, those are used to list records. A form allows you to edit one record or one row out of a data source. Okay. And the first thing that you need to set up, the first property of the form control is you want to connect it to data. So if I click on this little link, connect to data, what does it do? You see what it did? It selected data source here. And it also showed me all the data source. I'm going to click on students, see if it links it up. Okay, and it does not. Now I can type in here students up here in the expression bar. I could do that, but I'm a little too lazy to type out the word students. I'm going to go over here to the right side, my property pane. See where it says data source? I'm going to click on this little drop down. I'm going to click on students. Okay. So now it knows what type of data that it's going to allow the user to edit. Okay. But I still don't see anything here. So what I want to do, what we did with that little data table over here, I'm going to go over here to the right side, click on edit fields. Okay. And I'm going to add all the fields that I may want to edit. Now, I probably don't want to edit the ID. That's going to be a unique identifier. Actually, with an Excel document, Powerapps adds its own ID that won't be editable, but I think I had an ID in my data source, so I'm going to add that so we can see and maybe modify that if we wanted to. And also, if you look at these fields, now this isn't very pretty, Kurt, is it? What I do when I'm working with a form, which isn't too often anymore, I'll go over here. There's a property called column. So if I click on the word column, see, these are properties. Column, look what it does over here. If I click on the word, of course, it's not going to do it when I am expecting it to when I'm presenting, right? It should have.
No, we should just ask Copilot to fix it for us. Make it logical so it's right.
So I click on columns. Typically what happens is it selects the property over here. And it brings it up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to one column and see what it does. Oh, that looks so much better, Kurt, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I'm going to run this. I'm going to click on our record. What is going on here? Why don't I see the data? Well, it looks like I could edit some data here. So let me show you some other properties of the form. Okay, so we've got columns here. There's our fields. There's our data source. Here's a default mode, and it's set to edit. So by default, do you want to be able to add records or edit existing records? Well, I mean, I got a bunch of records on the side. If they click on it, I want to edit. So I want to keep it as edit. Okay, so I'm going to leave that there. But there is a property that should be more prominent here in the UI as you're working as a beginner here, Powerapps. You need to go over to advanced. Okay, and you need to go look for a property called item. And if I click on the word item, oh, look, it's going to work over here. Item. Okay. Now the item is, I want it to look at this data table over here. I'm going to go over here and look at the tree view. Okay. Tree view. What do I have here? I have a data table 1 and I have a form 1. Okay. So on the item property of the form that's on the right side, for the item, I want it to go look at that data table. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here to the top, and I'm going to say data table. Oh, it's got like a little listing of things that I could pick from. That's sort of nice. So I could just hit tab, data table 1, and typed it in there for me. Okay, but remember, data table is an object that has properties. Well, what I want, I don't want it to just look at the data table. I want it to look at whatever is selected in that data table. Well, let's see if it's got any properties here that I can reference. Data table 1 dot. Oh, look at that. The very first one, selected. So the selected property out of a data table or even a gallery give you the record that is currently selected. Now, F5, look at this, guys. We've got data over here. Now I'm gonna reposition you, Kurt. You're covering up the screen. And I click on a different record. Look at that.
It's funny because as soon as you said that, I tried to move to get out of the way. Oh, that's funny.
You're hilarious, man. Yeah, so you select different records here. This is great, and this is exciting, guys. So instead of sharing a spreadsheet, you can share an app like, hey, enter the data here in my app that I just built for you, But let's say I go in, the city. What city is that? I'm going to change that to Orlando. Okay. There's no save button, so it automatically saves it, right, Kurt?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to click on Alonzo. And I'm going to click back on Melisandre. It did not save, Kurt. What is going on?
I don't know.
I'm frustrated.
What happened?
I thought I was going to create an app, and this thing
submit or
stinks
something like
already.
That's the problem with them forums. They don't do what you think.
I'm going to add over a button here.
Might want to call it submit, huh?
Submit. Okay, yeah. So I'm going to double click on this button, and it's going to allow me to change the text of the button. Submit. Now look at that. You could just
look
go
how
here.
Easy. It's so easy.
It is easy. It is easy. Building apps is easy. So you got submit here.
Right. Yeah. I was gonna say, when I started programming, man, I had that would have taken me 3 days to create that button. Yeah.
Yeah, it was Visual C++. You got to create all your event loops within Windows and hundreds of lines of code. And all right, so I'm going to click on this button here, and there's 2 properties to get to know. If you do a search for YouTube, Darren Neese button, you're going to find, I think I've got like a 10-minute video talking about the basics of using a button. So I don't want to go too much into it, but change the text of a button and go to the on select and put some code in there. Okay, so we have on select selected, and some properties are event type properties. So whenever they click on that button, you want them to you want Powerapps to execute some code. Okay, in this case, there is a command within Powerapps called submit form. And commands, keywords in Powerapps are commonly called functions, because in Excel, you're probably familiar with functions. Okay. And what you can do is you can pass things into functions by using parentheses there. And you pass things in and have parameters separated by commas. You guys might be familiar with that. And if you're not, you will be now. So here, a submit form is going to take a form object or a form control, and it's going to take it as a parameter, and it's going to submit the data, or it's going to save the data to the data source. Okay. By the way, Andre says, love the comedy. Do you guys have communities behind your masterclass? Oh my goodness. Absolutely. I love that question. Absolutely. I didn't even think to mention this. Let me, I don't want this to be too much of a side shoot.
We paid him to ask that question.
The check's in the mail, Andre. Yeah. So here is, it's actually a free community. Okay. Now, if you want to book a call with me and Kurt and talk about the accelerator and how we can help you, I have a separate link for that. I'll make sure that's in the video description. Yeah. So if you want to meet with us, and tell us about what you're working with and finding out if we're a good fit and the program is a good fit for you, please do book a call, and you'll be part of, one of my students that gets to be invited to ask live questions. Here at the end, we'll have Q&A. So all of my accelerator students can, share their video and just ask all the questions that they have. So there's a whole community. So I just shared that in chat. That's the free community, but all my accelerator students have a much better, it's a similar community, but it's got a lot more stuff in it. So
it's also within that, we talk about all these things that we're talking about here, except we do it in a more streamlined mode. We got videos and that are going to be more streamlined to this, and it's just great. It's a really good situation to be in. If you can get into that.
So this is the free one here, and so you've got a place where you can post questions. You can go to Classroom, and there's some video content here. Some of it's free, some of it's paid. I have a crash course. I got a jumpstart kit. I've got a ticketing course, and if you purchase that, those become unlocked. Also, there's a way in my free community to get a lot of my stuff for free. Okay, so for example, I think I've got something down here. Want to earn free crash course or jumpstart kit. So if you go here, I explain all that. As you post, as you contribute to the community, you will gain in levels. As you make a post, people can like on your posts, and you'll go up in the ranks. And once you hit level 5 or a green belt, blue belt, because I created belt colors along with this. So if I click on this, you can work yourself up to black belt. Now the community is fairly new, so like you just saw, my level is 4. So I will probably be at black belt within, a few weeks. I'll be at black belt. So if you're there and you're contributing, you're asking good questions, those will be liked. You're going to move up to blue belt and then black belt. So the blue belt, you get my crash course. At black belt, you get my jumpstart kit for free. So I wanted to reward people that are engaged and active in the community. Okay.
I need to start talking more then.
You should.
I do.
All right. So we added a button. We're going to submit a form. It needs a parameter here. So I'm going to say form 1. That's the name of our form control that we added over. Okay. So now let's see if this actually works. City, Orlando. Submit. Oh, look, there's little dots.
What are those called? Those are called ants. Look at those ants going across your screen. What's that?
Yeah, I heard. There's a guy named Shane Young out there. You guys probably already know who Shane Young is. He would call those ants. I thought that was always funny.
They are.
Yeah. So if I click on the third row and then go back, oh look, there's Orlando. Okay.
Nice.
Very cool. So I'm gonna hit save. Make sure we're saving on a regular basis here.
Real quick, can you go back up to that function that you had, the form? I just want to talk about the anatomy of the function just real quick again. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So within everything in Powerapps is going to be functions. They're going to be written in functions. It's going to be a function format. And Darren, what is the whole purpose of a function? Do you know what that purpose is of a function?
To get something done.
To return a value.
Electron. What's that?
Is to return a value.
Okay.
That's the purpose of a function, to return one value. Now, sometimes that value is nil, which means nothing, but it's going to return a value. And I want to talk about that because you're going to be living in functions when you get into Powerapps. Every command is a function, and the whole purpose of a function is to return one value. One value. It could be a data type. It could be a record. It could be a table. It could be a variable. But it's going to be one value.
It could be a color.
It could be a color. Sometimes it's going to be nil. Nil or null means empty, right? So sometimes it's an empty value. But everything is a whole purpose of a function is to return one value. So you have the function name, which is the identifier.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, it's submit form.
Yeah.
And then you have the left and right parenthesis. Is that parentheses or parenthesize? Which one is that, Darren? You should ask Jeff that.
Whenever you're talking about parentheses or parenthesis, there's always an S on the end, is what somebody told me.
Okay.
If you go do a search for Darren Neese, if then else, I've got a video out there, and I was saying parenthesis, and he let me know it's like it's never parenthesis. It's either a parenthesis or parentheses.
Right.
I'm like, oh wow.
Right. So we have a left and right parenthesis. If we go back to that real quick, what happened?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
It's okay. So inside of that is, now he's talked about this in a quick level, but I just want to go over that slowly with you guys. In the middle, that's called a parameter. Now functions can have multiple parameters. Sometimes it can just have, like this function is just one parameter. Now sometimes they can have 2 or more parameters. Sometimes it can just be variable, but that's going to be dependent on the function. So the more you guys work with these functions, the more you're just going to know it in your head. Oh, that needs 2 parameters. Oh, that needs 3. But also, as you're writing this thing out, it'll actually help you. If you can't remember what it looks like, the syntax of it, it'll actually show you as you're typing it in. It'll tell you what that parameter is supposed to be.
It will.
Anyway.
So for example, you just made a really good point. It's really good for beginners to hear this.
Yeah.
Okay, look at that. There's information. Submit form.
Look at that. Look at that.
What's that?
Go ahead, Darren. We were talking on top of each other.
So here at the top, it's giving you information about using this function.
Yep.
And it's telling you, and it's expecting a form. Form, yep. What's that? Oh, the form which has to be submitted. Oh, okay. So maybe, oh, look, it's already giving me a suggestion. Form 1. I'm going to click on that and it puts it in there.
Look at that. It tells you what to do. It tells you for you.
Easy. This is so easy.
Look how easy this is. I think I made a video on that. So, and it's a lot less wordy too, by the way. Okay. So anyway, I just wanted to talk about that. So those parameters, this is a very powerful thing these functions are. And I'm hoping that somewhere in the near future, another thing that's really cool I want to throw out at you guys is that you guys are on the beginning levels of this Powerapps. Powerapps has been around, what, about 5 years now? But it's still growing. It's still changing. Right now, they don't have user-defined functions where you can actually create the powerful functions yet, but it's coming. I believe a day is coming when it's going to be very powerful. So
absolutely,
it's good to I want you guys to understand what's going on in the deep dark recesses of that function right there, because I think it's going to be very, very useful for you later.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I want to leave people off with the state of having a real app. So Kurt, what can you do with data? Like if I wanted a Powerapps job and you're like, Darren, in order for you to work beside me, this is what you need to know.
I can't believe you asked that, because I was just thinking, I really want to tell these guys this story really quick, or not the story, but I just want to express what you just asked me. I was trying to figure out how am I going to get that work in.
People pay big money to know this. Go ahead.
Yeah, they do. So the whole purpose of this thing, and by the way, I talk about it in my video too, just putting that out there. It's the
shameless plug.
Okay. Whatever. So the whole purpose of this whole thing, this isn't rocket science, right? This is not rocket science.
It's rocket surgery.
It's not even rocket surgery. It's not. All we're doing here is we're reading records, processing the data, and writing records. That's all we're doing. We're doing it one record at a time. We can talk about, we can make this thing look pretty. We can put it in different pictures. We can frame it differently. We can make it jump through hoops. But in the bottom, the end, what it all boils down to is that you're writing a record, processing a record, and writing it, reading it, processing, and writing. And so, and you're just doing it one at a time. You're doing one record at a time. All languages.
It's that simple,
all
guys.
Computers. What's that?
I said it's that simple, guys.
It is.
I sat in your first class, Kurt, and you got to when we got into data, you're like, guys, if you want to get a job working beside me, which a few months after that I did, you got me a job working right beside you.
Yeah.
And you said, if you can read a record, write a record, you could work beside me doing what I do every day.
That's it.
And I'm like,
that's all we're doing.
I was like, I can do this. I can do this.
Yeah.
I mean, if you guys are impressed by me and my skills, think about that. I was wondering if I was taking Kurt's course, and I'm like, I don't know if I can do this, because your confidence is really shaky when you're learning something new.
Yeah.
You can.
But all businesses, all games, even games do the same thing. But business applications, that's what we're making money. You're going to be living in the world of making businesses work. They need records, one record at a time. That's it. That's all businesses do. Go ahead, Darren. I know you were trying to jump in there. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I was just talking about how you made that real to me when you said that. And here you are. You're getting it right at the beginning. We're giving you all the gold. Read a record, write a record. And it's as simple as the stuff that you're already used to with spreadsheets, rows and columns. It's all rows and columns, Kurt.
It's all rows and columns. Or in this case, records and fields.
Yeah. Okay. So what I want to do to change this application. So there's 4 operations. So have you guys ever heard of a CRUD, an acronym, CRUD, C-R-U-D? So 4 letters. The C is for create. So you add a new record to a database table or to a data source or to an Excel spreadsheet. R is for read. Well, that's probably what you do most of. You read the record. And then the U is update. The record's already out there. So that's what we just did. So we're on the left side of the screen. We're already reading the record, and we're looking at it on the right side too. So we're doing the read. The D is delete. So CRUD. Those are the 4 database operations. And so what we've done here is we've added read and we've added update. What about what I'm thinking? Adding a new record is create. I'm sorry. Yeah, the C is create. Yeah. How do I create a new record here? What am I missing? I'm a Powerapps beginner. I need to add a new record. How do I do it, Kurt? Do you know?
Put a button on the form. That's what you do. Put a button on the form.
If you want something to happen in your Powerapps application, add a button. Boom.
You got to have a button.
Done.
You can't do nothing without a button.
Button. It's that simple. Add it
It's
over
that
here.
simple.
Which one buttons say, Kurt?
I think it should say add.
I like it. Castle. And then over
that's what we're going to do. Now it should be done, right? That's where we're done.
Yeah. And then, okay, so over here.
You need to move me, though, by the way. I'm covering up your ad.
Okay. I wonder if I did this. No, I don't like it because it's not showing other things.
Can you put us on the left side?
Yeah, I can. The only problem is that my screen's really small, but we just made it. We just may need to work with that. Okay. So for this button here, for the on select, I'm going to use a different function. I'm going to say new. I need a new record. I type new, and look at the top. It says new form. Okay, I'm gonna hit tab. If you like the very first option out of this, Kurt, what is that called? The listing that's trying to help me out. What do you call that?
That is called IntelliSense, sir. IntelliSense.
So
it is trying to make some intelligence of your nonsense.
That's hilarious. That's the first time I've heard you say that. That's great. All right, so instead of submit form, we're going to say new form. And look at this. It wants a form. Well, I only have one form. It's called form 1. There it is. I'm going to hit tab. And I'm going to say ending parenthesis. Okay. So it's going to do a new one there. Is that all I need to do? It can't be that easy, can it, Kurt?
Irregardless of your...
Hold on. I got to bring up somebody for that one. What'd you say, Kurt?
I said, irregardless of your...
That's what I needed. I needed him to... That was hilarious. Okay, I'm sorry.
He hates that word. It's not a word in his world, but it is in mine. And he absolutely can't stand me using irregardless.
There is no ear on regardless. It then becomes the Department of Redundancy Department.
That's great. That's funny stuff. Okay, back to the show.
We have fun here, Kurt.
We do. I hope you guys are having fun too, man.
So,
I always look at this. Well, I just want to say programming can be very dry, especially when you're trying to learn programming. It can be very dry stuff. It's like, the accountant with the green visor and the pocket protector. And look at this number here, guys, and it's like, it can be pretty dry. So I try to liven it up a little bit, man, because you got to kind of make it fun and interesting. Otherwise we'll go to sleep. Well, yeah.
Absolutely. Hey, I do have a favor to ask of all of you.
If you're getting anything helpful out of this, a comment or even a like really helps the channel and lets people like you know this is good content. Much appreciated.
All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this app, and I'm going to see if it really is as easy as doing this. Okay, so I'm going to click on add. Oh, it just blanked everything out. Okay, well, so here's Darren. I wonder if it's going to allow me to edit. I'm going to hit submit. Then what's going to happen? Okay, then it brought up this thing here. Over here, what is my record here? I mean, we've got a lot of data here. I need to verify that it was actually got in the data source. Okay, so that brings up another topic that we might want to show people, right? Okay, so we have this data table here. I'm gonna make some space up here. And let's do something like maybe this is like a natural progression. As you're building an app, you're like, okay, now I got this happening. Now I get this happening. So building a program is like line upon line, precept upon precept. Just do one thing at a time. Just focus on one thing. Okay, I just want to read okay, now I've got that.
That's right.
Now I need to edit. Okay, now I need to add. Boom. Now I need to, now I need to search or filter things down. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a little text input that allows people to search. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, I have this, and I'm going to take out the text there because I don't want any text to be in there initially. But there's a property called hint text. And in the hint text, I'll say search first name. Enter. Or I can just say search name, because maybe we might want to search for last names too, okay? So I'm going to Control S as I'm adding things here, okay? So search name, and what I want to do here is I want to type in Darren, and then I want this only to show me the Darrens, okay? So now think about what we're trying to do. We want this data table to display information. Well, it's already, if I click on data source, it's already showing me students, but we need to modify that. Okay. We don't want it to show all the students. What we want to do is I'm going to open up this little coding window a little bit. Okay. And I'm going to use a function called search. Okay. I'll use the open parenthesis there. Okay, looking at this information up here, the source. Well, students is the data source. And then what is the text that I want to search? Well, I have a text box or a text input. Okay, I didn't rename it. It just says text input 5. Okay. Now the text input 5 is a control. It's an object that has properties. What property are we interested in? Whatever the user typed in, which is text, the text that they typed. Okay. Now, a third parameter a parameter is an argument or something that you pass in to a function. Okay. And I'm going to bring Kurt back in here. And so the third parameter, it says column. What column do I want to look in? Well, do we have something like first name? Okay. Now, if I scroll down here, I'm looking for something that says first name. And there it is, first name. But maybe I want to search in the last name too. Okay, well, I can continue to add more column names. Last name, okay. I'm going to end up this function call with the ending parenthesis. Okay, now let's see how this works now. I'm going to run it. Where's my data at, Kurt? I'm going to go look at settings here for a moment. And it says 2000. You have any ideas?
Okay. So, you're doing search stuff for that name. You're searching on the first name. Shouldn't you just say, okay, so you're just trying to do, just use one column in there. Just use the last name for now, just to see if you can get that to work.
Yeah.
I'm-
I'll just say first name, maybe say, okay, that does work.
Yep, there you go.
So if I want,
okay, so what you want to do is I'm sorry. Go ahead, Darren.
So what I was thinking was this could be just like a search that would apply to either first or last name. That's why I added last name in there. But Kurt, you just did something genius, and it's something you taught me when I was a baby programmer, as you used to refer to me, is if something doesn't work, what you need to do is strip things out and isolate. Let's make this the simplest thing possible. Let's not try to get complex. Let's not try to get slick and try to search on multiple things at once at first. Get something to work first. And once you see that it works, then you add something onto it. So,
that's right. It's about, you said it at the beginning of this thing, it's about solving problems. For those of you guys that have done calculus or algebra, the best way to solve a problem is to break it down to its simplest form first, right? Yeah. So that's what we're trying to do here.
Yeah.
But I'd like to get slick here, Darren, if we could.
Oh, okay.
Well, because you said you wanted to do a search on the first name or the last name, right? So why don't we just put a calculation between those two fields, the last name plus the first name? Do a search on last name plus the first name, concatenate those, and put that into that one parameter. Why can't we do that? Well, why can't we?
So, okay, so here, are you suggesting that I do something like plus or ampersand?
I would say last name, use the last name first.
Okay.
Before the first name. Put the last name and then the first name. and concatenate the two. Concatenate the two.
Right.
Yes.
So something I wanted to point out here, guys, is that you'll notice some things don't come up unless you have the correct casing, because my field names here have what's called proper casing. I was just typing last name lowercase, didn't pull it up. So like if I went over here to search and made this a lowercase s, it does not work. So I just wanted to point that out. Okay, so Kurt, you said do an ampersand.
Yes.
And then we'll say first name. Now I've never done that before, so I didn't know if that was going to work.
I've not either. I wanted to try.
Mm-hmm. So how I've always done it is use commas here, and for some reason that's not working. So I'm going to keep it simple and just say first name for a moment.
Sure.
And it comes
another trick we do, guys. Another trick we do in this database world is what we'll do is we'll create a sort column. So if you're creating, like, you'll have a last name and a first name and then a sort name for that way, so
that's true.
That way you can use it. And whenever they're inputting their data, they'll put the last name and the first name, and our program will automatically concatenate those two and put it in the sort name for us. Yeah. I know I just talked a lot about, I just went into a spiel about something that you guys are probably like, what in the heck did he just say? But we're going to get into that in the future, I think, guys. Yeah. We're going,
absolutely.
We've covered probably about 3 months worth of classes in this one live.
This is great. I love it.
I mean, and that's the problem with me and Darren, is that we get going on stuff in 20 minutes. We're going to cover 4 hours worth of material because we just love doing this so much. But if you guys are getting overwhelmed in this moment with all this search and everything, just remember that you guys have we're going to have this out recorded, and you guys can get the video and look at it and just and slow it down and try it on your own. Create your own canvas and try to replicate everything that Darren's doing, and you guys can just go back and forth with it. So I just want to kind of put that out there. Don't get overwhelmed in this. We're giving you a lot of information because we just want to show you how cool this is, Yeah. So
2 things I wanted to mention. You're watching this video. This, I was going to say this won't work while you're watching it live, but it actually would. If you're on YouTube, you can actually rewind it. There's a little sprocket, whether you're watching it live or on demand. Click on the little sprocket you see on YouTube or Vimeo or whatever you're looking at. There's a little sprocket down below. You can change the speed at which Kurt and I are talking. So if we start talking about them really fast and start bringing over buttons and all kinds of cool stuff, what you can do is click on that little sprocket, like, whoa, slow down there, and make us talk half speed, maybe, if you feel like we're talking too fast. Because I do get that feedback sometimes that I talk a little bit too fast, and I tell everybody that, hey, you can just go in there and make me a little slower. So I always like to mention that.
Hey, Darren. Mm-hmm. Hey, Jeff asked earlier, I don't know if you addressed this or not, but he asked in another chat, he said, how do you rearrange the columns in desired order, like first name and last name? Did you guys address that?
No. In fact, I'm going to copy that and bring that over so people can see. Okay. So and I see Andre has some comments. So we'll bring that up here in a moment as well. We got all kinds of things to talk about. All right. How do you rearrange columns in the desired order? First name, last name. Okay. So I am going to blank out Darren. So I'd like to look at more of the data. Okay. Do you see that? Now, the first thing I'm going to show you, Jeff, in fact, I'm just going to bring you on just in case you have a question or comment as we're going over this, okay? I have the data table selected, and I go over here to fields, okay? And so you're looking at all this. I'm going to collapse all these things here because this is absolutely something that you'll want to do. I want first
That's
name.
Right.
And then is this what you're talking about, or were you talking about sorting it vertically?
Nope, that's exactly it. So you can put it into the more common sense order. Obviously, you want last name right after first name, maybe state right behind city, that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, if you wanted to the other type of sort, so we have search. I'm going to open up voting window. And what I can do here is break this up between different lines of code so it's more cleaner, is I can say sort. Now there's two sort functions. I'm going to show you the most simple one first. Okay. I want to sort that data source that we have. Okay. And then perhaps we want to sort based on last name. Okay. So I'm going to click last name. And lo and behold, it will sort it by the last name, ascending. Now you could say descending. Okay, so if I go out, it will start with the Z's first. Okay, so there is a third parameter in here. It's optional. If you don't provide it, it's going to assume that it's ascending. But you could say descending. You need to have in that little sort order dot descending. Microsoft changed that. So you have to actually spell it out. Sort order dot descending. Okay, so that's how you sort it vertically.
Now, I just want to kind of point out real quick. If you go back to that sort, go back to your sort when you can. So you'll notice where it says he's sorting on the search. All right. So there's a search. We have a nested function going on here. We got nested functions happening here. He's got two functions that are happening at the same time, one inside the other. Now, if you look at the sort parameter list up there, sort is looking for a source. The very, oh, no, go back. Okay, there you are. So you'll see that first source. The source is getting created by the search function. Remember I told you guys earlier that the whole purpose of a function is to return one value? So search is going to go out there and take those parameters that we put in it. It's going to go out there and perform this operation. It's going to be searching through the student table. It also is looking for a source, right? And the source is the student table. And so then it's going to go out there and it's going to look in that student table and it's going to return one value. And that is going to be the set of records that match that search criteria, which would be whatever we typed in that text input 5.text value. And it's going to go compare that to the first name. And then it's going to return all that list. It might be 10 records. It might be just one record. But it's going to return that entire data set, back to the sort function, which is called the sort function is looking for that data set. So the data source is going to be the searched records. It took that entire, you might have 2,000 records, but when you did that search, it's going to narrow it down to about 10 records or maybe just one record. And it's going to bring it right into that sort function. And then that sort function is going to perform its operation on those 10 records that got brought in. Does that make sense to you guys? Do you guys see that? This is powerful stuff, guys.
It is.
So I just wanted to show you that. Okay, go ahead there.
Yeah. I wanted to do here. Okay. So yeah, that was a very good point. And I am so thankful that you brought up the whole thing about functions return values, because a lot of times you're going to be nesting these things. Here's a perfect example.
That's right.
We're nesting things.
Yep.
And you do that a lot in Excel if you're familiar with it. But if you haven't done a lot in Excel, you haven't done anything in programming, this might be like really foreign to you, you know? So,
right.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of comments both in the private chat and in the other chat here. So Andre says, I didn't even know about search. I've been using filter. What's the key differences? Okay, so search is you're really wanting to like almost like surgically or narrow things down really narrowly. You're looking to just get to one record, or you might want to narrow it down to maybe 3 records, maybe see all the Johns or all the John Smiths. And but that's sort of like a filter, right? A filter will filter down your result set. But think of it this way. Let's say you've got customers all over the country, in the United States, and you've got a drop-down list at the top of our screen called states. Well, you might want to filter based on state. So I think that's one of the key differences is filter typically you use just to look at, a lot of rows, but you just want to filter it, where search is like you're looking to get, something really specific. And there's a function called starts with. So you could use a filter function. By the way, if you guys want to know about any of this, the sort, the search, the filter, we can't cover everything in one session. Go to YouTube, search for your trusty instructor here, Darren Neese, and then search filter, whatever. I have videos that go over all these things, and a lot of them are just 2 or 3 minutes long, So, Kurt, what, in your opinion, what are the key differences? Like because search and filter are sort of similar. What is it that makes you use one over the other?
I think search probably has it's more suited for text-based searches. See, search you can actually use on text as well as tables, right? So that function is got a wider data source type. So in other words, search is looking for a data source, but I believe that search you can actually use text-based variables and search within that too, can't you?
Yeah.
And I think that the search function has a more versatile type thing, whereas filter is designed for tables only. But they are very similar. I think if I was going to be doing database operations where I'm just selecting and I know a set of records, then I am going to go and use filter. If I'm just trying to search certain amount of text, like we're doing like a name or name search or a city search, I'm going to use that search because it's got more. There are these things called patterns that that's going on in the deep dark recesses of your computer behind the scenes. Search is using these things called patterns to go out there and look at that search to see if it's matching these patterns. And it's much faster, I think, than using the filter. Whereas filter is more designed for like if you have a hard-coded set of stuff that you're trying to get, go ahead in there and grab filter. You know what I mean? I guess that's the best way I can explain it.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. So I will recognize or concede that between search and filter, there's a lot of situations where you could use either, but typically if you got a text box where you want people to type in something, they're trying to do a search, the search function is probably better for that. Now there are some delegation issues with search with certain data sources. And that's more of probably an intermediate topic or a topic I wouldn't want to get into in this video. So,
and there's other things, Darren, you can do starts with. There's other functions in there. There's so many ways to solve this problem. I just kind of want to digress just a second, Darren, if we can.
Sure.
And we don't even have to try this right now because remember when I tried to get slick when we had the last name and the first name and we had that ampersand in there to concatenate? Mm-hmm. Amar just said something to me that just reminded me of something. He said, don't we add ampersand in between the two columns in formula bar? Now, the thing of it is that ampersand is an and. That means that you're anding an operation in that, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that might work or not, but maybe later on we could kind of play. I might even try to do a little lab on this, and maybe next Saturday would come up. I might try to bring a solution to where we can make that search slick and go. We can search among multiple fields at the same time. Yeah. I would like to do that. Anyway, what do you think about that? There, that ampersand.
Yeah. So what it makes me want to do is give a little bit of a sample of using filter because I want to sort of go into that a little bit and really the basics. So that's really the next thing. Filter is huge. Okay.
It's huge.
Let me remember we got 4 operations, CRUD, right? And we've got read, we have add, we have update. The one that we have yet to add here is delete. Now I'm going to do something special for delete. This is going to be a topic maybe that will just take me 1 or 2 minutes to cover. Okay. Kurt will laugh when I say something like that.
But never happens, guys.
After
it's
that,
an hour.
I'd like to show you guys a filter, but I just want to make sure we cover all 4 of those. Okay.
So, or maybe we could do the filter next week with some more database operations.
We could do that. Absolutely.
Maybe.
So on the insert, you have icons, and you can go into icons and go find something that would be good for delete. We could add another button. I'm going to say delete, and I don't see anything there. I see. What about trash?
show them your trick on that icons when you're using icons.
Yeah.
This is a cool trick. People pay big money for this.
So if you want to add an icon, okay, so this is the same way of going up here and insert. So if you go into icons, what I recommend to everybody, just click the first one. If you want to, it doesn't matter. You just click on it.
Yeah.
I'm going to zoom in here. There's the icon, right? After it's there, you go over here to the right side. Look at this. You can.
Now you got to search.
Yeah. Yeah. You got a search icon. And you can look at them all without this little.
You see them all.
Yeah. Rather than looking at them small here. You know what I mean? So that's something that I sort of learned on my own, and pass that on to you.
It's a great trick. I love it. I use it all the time.
I'm going to zoom out there and go here, go there. Okay, so I've got this little delete, and I might want to put the delete right here. Okay, and you know what I might do, Kurt, is make my buttons a little smaller to make more space here. And for deletes, what I like to do is make the color red or maroon.
See, now this is where he and I would be, if it was me doing this thing, I'd be throwing these things up there helter skelter, and I'd be just kind of like, the whole point is just to get the point across of what we're doing here, and I didn't care about that. But see, what he's doing is he's taking the time to make this. He's so meticulous with this stuff. He's got to have this all perfect even in this, and I love it. I love that. I wish I could be a little bit more like that, you know.
There, I got, and it almost looks like a button. I got a little border on it and everything. Now, here's the icon. Oh, look, here's the property. It's an event property. Okay, so I could say, Kurt, is there a delete function here? I don't see a delete function.
Nope.
What function do we use if we want to delete? What can they call it? Delete.
Well, I mean, there's another way to delete it. It could be called remove. Amber said it's remove. I think it's remove, maybe.
Very good, Armor. Yeah.
But what are we removing?
Well, we're going to remove a student.
You got to tell that function. You got to tell that function it's going to remove.
Oh, I don't want to delete all my students.
Don't want to remove all of them.
Oh, look, the second parameter on remove, it wants to know what item or what row I want to delete. Okay, that's good.
There it is.
So I'll do a comma here. Well, which one?
I think
How do I point to the row that we want?
That's a good question. How do we do that?
Well, before, when we submitted a record, we referenced this little data table.
Yeah.
So maybe I could do that again here. Maybe if I tried data table 1, which one? Whichever one is selected.
Dot selected. There it is. Now that selected is a record, an entire record.
It is. In fact, what's cool about this little coding window, you can select things. It's hilarious. I'll say, hey, you select things. If you present, nothing works right. So I'm trying to select this, Kurt. Look at this. It's not. I have to do it with my keyboard. There we go. I couldn't do it with my mouse. Okay. My phone is blowing up. I'm going to put this thing on silent. All right. Oh, look at this. It's showing me. Look at this. I selected it, and it says what you selected there was a record.
You know what? You didn't show them that. Show them when you're in that. Maybe we could do that next week too. But if you click on that data table, that bottom, whenever you're on, if you double click the variable or the object or whatever it is, like in this case, he's got data table 1 selected. Look at the bottom of that drop down or the coding window. It says it's a control. Now click over there on that data table on the bottom on the left corner, the bottom left corner over there. No, of the coding window. You should be able to see the data in it, right? How do you get to see the data in it?
Okay, well, the data table, if I just select data table, it's going to tell me, hey, that's a control. Okay.
Right.
But if I say dot selected, now it's telling me it's a record. Oh, And here's all the values of the record.
And it's showing you the data in there. That's pretty cool stuff, man. That's so valuable when you run. Remember this later on, guys, when you start writing programs and they get complicated and you're having a bug and you can't figure out, man, what's going on? It's not working right. And you go in there and you look, it says, well, there's no data in there. That's why it's not working right. You'll be able to actually see the contents of what's going on inside of that.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. So I've got one record selected and I'm going to click on the trash can. You ready? Everybody cross their fingers. Whenever I write code, sometimes I cross my fingers when I run it. Oh, look, those dots are going.
We have ants.
It's working.
I keep thinking of that commercial where it says, we have ants and all the ants are in the house.
So, Kurt, did it look like it worked? We're looking at.
Well, I don't know.
Zor. We have 2 Zors now.
Okay, let's get rid of a Zor.
Oh, no roads found. What is going on?
There it is. Oh, let's go look at our data.
Well, I can tell you what's going on. Excel is a horrible data source, but I'm going to click on zinc and click on delete. Let's see what happens here.
Okay.
I just saw that row get removed.
The Zor went away.
Yeah. So I rarely see errors like that when we're just using these simple functions. So I think it's because of Excel. Yeah. So just remember, Excel, it's fine for learning. Never use it in the real world here. Okay.
You just saw a good reason why you don't use Excel in your production when you're writing a program, a serious program for a business. Don't use Excel because of that kind of thing right there.
Yeah. Okay. So the next thing that I want to do is I'm going to insert are you guys familiar with what a drop down list? I'm going to type in drop down. Oh, look at this drop down. Everybody's familiar with a drop down, right? So if we've got, let me make this as big as the text box is there, or as tall. And then if I run this, look at this, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so everybody's seen a drop down list, right?
Sample data.
Yeah. So drop down sample. So that's a keyword in Powerapps. If you click on that, look at that value 1, 2, 3. Okay. Mm-hmm. So instead of that, what I want to do is I want it to go look at this data source, and I just want to display all the cities. Okay. And how do I do that? Well, let's say if I've got 5 people in Orlando, I don't want to see 5 Orlandos in the drop-down list. I want a distinct list of all the cities in my database. And lo and behold, distinct is a function. Now look up here, data source. What's our data source? Well, we know it is students. What's the expression? What is that, Kurt? Expression? Okay.
It wants you to express yourself, Darren. So,
yeah. So for here, it wants a field name or a column name. Okay. So here I'm going to say city through the ending parenthesis. Oh, the ants were going. Oh my goodness.
Now, guys, this is an advanced function. Don't get overwhelmed with this, man. Don't, because he's going to throw this at you here. So,
and I know you. So you select this. It's giving us the data. What is distinct function return? Because Kurt has told us functions return values. Well, it gave me like an array of values or a single column table. Okay.
Yep.
And what do I see?
And it called it value.
It called it value. Isn't that interesting? It didn't call it city.
Nope. Because it returns a value. Yeah. It doesn't care what it is.
Yeah. Whatever the column name that we specify up here, it doesn't care. Distinct is always going to return a single column table and it's going to call it value. So just keep that in mind. Okay. Because that will come up later. Okay. Yeah. But these values, immediately I want to sort this. I want to see the cities with A at the top and the ones with Z at the bottom. So I'm going to say sort this data source. And the column name that I want to sort on won't be city because distinct gives us value here. So
it returns a value called value.
And look at that. Okay. So now if I run this, I'm going to open this up. Oh, here's all of our cities. Isn't that cool? Okay. Now I
Look
want
how
this.
easy this is.
What's that?
Look how easy this
It
is,
is easy.
guys.
It is easy. I want this stuff down here to be filtered. This little students thing right here. I want to embed a function, nest a function here. I'm going to say filter. I want to filter the students, and filter works a lot like the search function that we went over before. The first parameter is the data source. The second parameter is your criteria. Well, I want the city to equal what is selected in the drop-down list. So I'll say drop-down. Okay, I don't see my drop-down. So I'll go to the tree view, and my drop-down is called drop-down 1. So I'll say drop-down 1 dot. Okay. I want the selected text. IntelliSense isn't helping me out because it's got problems. I think what's going on here, I need an ending parenthesis, and it's having a problem with that. Also, I need a comma. Okay, so all these little things. Oh, I need a comma here. I have to have an ending parenthesis here. These are this relates to syntax. The word syntax means rules of whatever you're working with, or rules of a programming language. Okay, so the syntax for dealing with it, you got to make sure your syntax is in there just right before it's going to help you out with IntelliSense. Okay, so
Yeah, and if I can, Darren, if I could pause just a second there
sure,
with that.
yeah.
Look, you guys, again, many of you guys are in here today looking at this as maybe trying to take on something new. And then you start hearing about these rules and all this different syntax and everything. And I just want to tell you guys that no matter what you're doing, if you decide you want to get another job, you're going to have to learn the rules in that job. Every job you go to has rules. Every thing that you do has got rules behind it. So we're just going to another job here, and we're just trying to learn the rules within it. And of course, most of those rules you can learn, quickly, but sometimes it's going to take a minute to learn some of these rules. So give yourself a chance to learn these rules of this new job that you guys are trying to do here. I just wanted to put that out there like that.
Absolutely. And Andre says, this is really helping fill in the gaps of my knowledge. So I'm so glad to hear that.
Good.
Thank you, Andre. So I'm going to run this and test this out. Okay. I guess Darren is the only guy that has a blank city. Is that even true? So let me go into city here and let me type in.
Might be a case of not really good data.
There you go.
Yeah. I'll
submit that.
You could have filtered out those things too by blanks, to get rid of the blanks.
That's true.
By the way,
That's
you guys
true.
could do that if you wanted to get slick with it.
Yeah. So let's go down.
Also, Darren, Amr wanted to know, he's still wants to know more about that value with the distinct. We need to go over that again.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
If we can.
Yeah, I'll bring in Armor here. Why did we have to add value?
Yeah. So the value is part of the distinct function and how we had to do that. So we need to talk about that a little bit more. Like I said, this is kind of a different type of function, guys. So let's, it might take a second to get the hang of this one.
Yeah. So why do we have to add value? So the value right here. So the value needed to be added for the sort. Let me show you. I'm not going away from this topic. I'm going to go back over here to the data source, and I want to show you how we used sort before. Sort will take a data source. Okay. Then it needs a column name or a field name. Okay. So we go back over here to the drop-down list. What do we have? We have a data source and it needs the column. Now, for some reason, we're not saying city here. We're saying value. So why do we have to use value instead of city? Because the function distinct is a special little function that does something weird. It will always return a single column table, and the column name will always be value. So whenever you work with distinct, you always know if you're working with distinct functions, it's just going to return value. It doesn't matter what it is. So it sort of took all the city values and created all this, and at the top it says value. And because of that value, the sort function needs to know what to sort on. Well, the only column that was returned was value, but we still have to include it.
So
does that make
so in terms of the function, I'm sorry, go ahead, Darren. You weren't done. I thought you were done.
No, go ahead. I was just going to ask Armor if that
so
makes sense.
Okay, are you clear on that, Armor, or does it kind of make sense?
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense.
Because, okay, because
so whenever
you got to look at this. Sorry.
Can you hear me, guys?
So, yeah, I hear you fine. Yeah, I just didn't want to step on top of you. I thought you were trying to talk. I didn't want to cut you off.
You can go ahead. I'll be back. You can go ahead. I can say later.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that this distinct function is returning. It's not that. Remember, we said it returns a value, and sometimes what this is, and this is another topic. It's almost like an array. Okay, it's just bringing a pop guys to be able to work with, and Powerapps is just it's labeling that pocket of memory, the label value on it, because it could be any value. It just puts any value into this pocket of memory. And in this case, you put a city in that pocket of memory. So when he's sorting that thing, it doesn't really matter. It's saying just sort that value. Whatever is in that pocket of memory, sort that pocket of memory is what you're trying to tell it to sort. So you have to give it that value because that's exactly what distinct labeled it. They called it value, right? So
right.
And there's more than one function like that. There's a few functions that do that, and I can't think of any right off the top of my head. But doing into that value, needing to put value in there a few times. So anyway.
Yeah. So something I wanted to mention, because this is a live stream and we got a lot of people connecting and stuff, we're just dealing with technology and there's a lag. And when there's a lag, sometimes it's sort of hard to sort of synchronize with each other. So, so I just wanted to mention that. And,
good stuff. Guys.
Okay. So we've covered a lot here today, and I'm hoping I'm gonna share my screen. Yeah, we have. I'm gonna bring up my screen again because we're gonna be answering questions about this, and I am going to open it up for questions now. So, if you're showing your video, I am gonna add you to the stream. So so Jeff Armor. Okay. And so guys, feel free. Is there anything that we haven't covered in the chat that anybody asked?
I asked one question earlier that so when we rearranged the columns in the table over in the gallery, it stayed by the old arrangement. Is there a way to rearrange those so that they're in the same order as the columns in the table?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So over here on the form, what we'll do is we'll go over, just like we did with the data table, go over here to fields, click on edit fields, and we could do the exact same thing. You would almost hope that it would see what we're trying to do and would rearrange things for us. Okay, so first name, we have the ID at the top, then I had last name, and it's great. You can just drag and drop. It's really good like that. So that's how you would do that. So did that answer your question?
Yeah. Yep. That's good.
I'll just, guys, this is your time now. I mean, we've covered a lot. Let us know your thoughts on this.
Yeah, what'd you guys think about this whole thing?
It was really helpful. So one thing in the distinct function, so whenever you're using it, the distinct, when you're using the distinct function, the value comes along with it. You have to put the value in the end.
No matter if you're trying to do a distinct on city or zip code or name or whatever distinct on, it's going to come back value every time.
Yeah. Okay, but like typing in the formula, if we were not typing, if we remove sort and we're just using distinct, so in the end, we still have to type the value after the
That's
bracket.
correct. If you're wanting to look at the data if you want to see what's inside of that distinct function, you have to address value. Yes.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yep.
Now, while we wait for anybody to formulate or articulate a question, there is something I did want to show you that's sort of exciting and something that you should know about that will really help you in this beginner stage. Even while you're looking at all this, the filter, the search, and the sort and everything, I'm going to show you something that's really going to help you create your first application. Okay. So over here on this tab, I just brought up Powerapps. Okay. And what I'm going to do in this app, I'm going to save it. And then after it's saved, I'm going to get out of it. Okay. Because I want to show you how I can connect to that Excel spreadsheet a different way. What I'm going to do is look at this. You see Excel? Start from an Excel file to create a 3-screen app. I'm going to select it. And it's going to ask me for my connection here. So I'm going to add a connection. And I'm going to go look for OneDrive for Business because that's how we did it in the other project, right? We used OneDrive for Business to connect to the Excel document in my OneDrive. Okay, so I'm going to sign into my OneDrive in this other thing here, and then allow access. Okay, look at this. There's the mock data. Now, if you have data and want to generate an app just from a one table data source like this, I'll show you what it can do on its own here. Okay, so here's students. I'm going to click connect. This might blow your mind. If you're new to Powerapps, this will blow your mind. It's going to generate a full app.
I have my own comments about this.
Now, this is a training wheel type of thing. I want you guys to know about it. I want you to use it at first, but eventually I'm going to say, yeah, you're probably not interested in this. Okay. But if I click on a record, it's going to show me the data, and then I can delete it. I can edit. If I click on edit, it goes to the third screen, a 3-screen application that allows you to do all those CRUD operations, CRUD. Okay, here we go. There's no save button, but there is a little check mark icon up here. Okay. Now, what's great about this, guys, as a beginner, you see there's 3 screens here it created for us. I can click on this icon. Oh, there's a submit form. I know about submit form. Oh, this is just a form. And I can go in and, oh, look, I can change the order here. Okay, let me go down to the browser. Okay, now this isn't a data table. This is a gallery, which is better than a data table. And look, sort by columns, search. Oh, here's a text box. They're searching on city, email, first name. And then we're sorting by city. And then we have an if function. This is a great little sample app. You understand your data. You brought in your spreadsheet. Okay. You generated this app. Look at all. Okay. Here's a button, refresh. Okay. So if somebody else is modifying the data, I can click on this icon and call a function called refresh. So this is a great little learning environment to generate an app like that. What do you guys think of that?
I've got 2 words for it.
Yeah. Let me hear those 2 words.
I want to wait. What else got to say? Anybody else got anything to say about these? I mean, nobody's got anything to say.
It's straightforward.
It is.
It is.
Yeah.
Those are good 2-word phrases.
Yeah.
My 2-word phrase is dot matrix. Dot matrix.
Dot matrix.
I mean, you guys remember the days of dot matrix printers? Where you had little dots,
about to say,
and that was what
matrix. Are you talking about
the words or the letters? Yeah, matrix printers. I remember when I was back in the days of teaching colleges, I used to say, don't ever give me anything with dot matrix. Don't make me read dot matrix print. I guess I'm saying that to say, it's pretty cool. It's kind of a gimmick. It's pretty cool to learn with, but don't turn in any apps kind of work for with that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Tractor feed is no fun. Yeah.
So I pulled in everybody, encourage everybody. Everybody can talk that has been pulled in as a panelist. You guys are my accelerator students. You get first dibs on all my time. Now's the time to ask away. If you don't have a question, I'm going to show you another cool thing.
I have a question. So I've been working with Powerapps, so I came across this. Well, this is out of what we learned today, though. So when you add a new screen, you have another section called components or something, in which you have a screen with all the dotted lines, like one section over here and the other section over here, and the next screen is, all one section on top, and the middle section and the bottom section. What is that? I mean, I don't know about it.
So here
So
on the screen here,
the template, I think.
Yeah, the templates. Yeah, exactly. On the new screen.
Yeah, he's referring to your template there.
Oh, my template? Okay.
Yeah. No. In Powerapps. Just in Powerapps, if you add a new screen.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about. Okay.
The template.
You can add a blank new screen, or you can click on templates. And it's got some cool stuff here.
Okay.
Yeah. For example, this is a really good use for it. I can create a success screen that looks like that. Isn't that nice?
So it's just like, okay.
Put us to the side so you can see us. And then what I can do is I can say screen one. I'm going to copy that screen one, or I could call it screen. Okay. I'm going to put that on the clipboard, Control C. Over here on the edit screen, whenever they hit save, okay, what I can do is I can do something different here. I'm trying to make more space on the screen. Okay. After I submit the form, I want to put another line of code here. And you separate lines of code with a semicolon, just like JavaScript, C, C++. I'm going to hit a semicolon there with my pinky. Now I'm going to say navigate. That's a function. If you want to move from screen to screen, use navigate. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a single quote because my screen name has a space, okay, which is a good thing. I'm going to navigate to that other screen. So I'm going to run this. And so I'm going to take out the extra A in there. Maybe that was a misspelling, okay? And then I'm going to click the check mark here to save. Oh, look, the dots are going across the screen. Okay. And it saved it. And then it went to, I saw it for a moment. This thing popped up. And then I'm a little confused why it didn't stay up. That was interesting. Probably because there is an on. Yeah, they have Microsoft on success. Look at this. They did a back.
Yeah.
So what we could do instead of this on the on success, I'm going to cut that out. Okay. And then for the form, it has a property called on success. Instead of going back, I want it to go there. Okay. So I'm going to put the extra A back in. I'm going to save it. Take a moment. It'll go here. And then what are you going to do? Well, here we could probably add a button and say, go back home. Do that. And then here, the browse screen is the home screen. So I'm going to click on the button. And from here, I can say navigate, browse screen, whoops, browse screen one. Okay, so I can run it. And what's cool, you get this sort of gets you up and going very quickly, but you can easily add to it. Okay. So what do you guys think of that? Yeah, so
I like it.
It's good.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah. What I was going to show you guys here, it's a new feature that came out recently. It's called it's called Copilot. So let's say out of everything that we did here, I could say on the home screen, I clicked on Home Power Apps, and I say, oh, look, I want my app to collect, list, track, or show. What I could do here is say, I want to keep track of my students. Enter. So it's using artificial intelligence to build an app for me. Oh, look at this. So I'm going to zoom in here to make this easier to see. Okay, look at the student ID, first name, last name, gender, grade, school. Okay, I might want to keep track of that type of stuff. And what you do is you just tell it what's going on. Okay, so I got, I don't see an email. Add email, enter. Let's see what it does. Sure, here's the updated table schema for student details. All right, now I don't see it, so let me zoom out a little bit and scroll around. Oh, look, email address. Look at that. Okay, add phone number, enter. It's not terribly fast. So I've showed you 3 easy ways of creating apps. Okay, there's phone number. Okay, now the thing is, this AI, this Copilot, only works with Dataverse. Okay, so it's going to create the Dataverse stuff for you. So if I go down here to the bottom, now here's our suggestions off here to the left. Change blank to blank. You know, if you want to rename something, you can actually say, give me 25 more sample records. Let's see if it can do that. All right, I can't help. Okay. Give me more sample data. So this is a brand new feature. So they're still working out the kinks, but let's see if we can rephrase something that will actually give us the results we're looking for.
So do we have to give a data source, or it just makes it randomly?
No, it's creating the data source from scratch. Yeah, Nick says, don't you have to say please? Yeah.
Man, I tell you what, I love Nick. That's funny. Don't you have to say please when you're saying it? It might work better if you say please.
Yeah. It gave me just like 5 more records or 6 more records. Okay, so you can, like, you know, talk to it here. So it hasn't created the data source yet. It's giving us the visuals of what it could create for you. And it doesn't actually create the data source until you click on this button. So I'm going to click on this, create app. Okay. It's getting things ready.
About the option that I was talking about. So I went to my Powerapps application. It's in tablet mode. So when I click on new screen, those different options show. So you were in mobile thing. So that's why it wasn't showing. So could you please? Yeah. No, it doesn't go into template. In the layout itself, it shows different things. So I don't know what it is, but I want you to explain it to me. So
Sure.
Could you move
so
to?
let me cover it in this one, because this one is a landscape, right? Okay,
Yeah.
so it generated this little app for us. Let's see how good this is. Okay, so here's all our students on the side, and I can go over here. I can edit. Oh, there's a little form. Generates an app for us. Okay, so let me go back and talk about what you're talking about here. So it created a one-screen application that does all the 3 functions that the other app did for us. So I can go up here to the top, add screen.
Yeah.
Okay, look at that. Split screen, sidebar, main header, main footer section.
So are these galleries on a screen, or is it, what are those? Like, how are they splitting it? Are those like gallery 1, gallery 2, or what?
Yeah, so let me click on one and let's take a look at one here. Okay, so what this does is it puts over responsive containers. Okay. So just going back here. So these are different layouts of a screen. Okay. It's not really adding a lot of stuff here. It's just giving us a blank slate. But what you see, it says layouts. This is the different layout of a screen. So you can create it. The app that it created is a responsive app. So you'll see a bunch of, look at this, screen container, body container. There's all these containers. It's not a regular container, because if you go in here and you type in, I want a container control. Okay. You got container, which I like to use quite a bit, but there's this vertical and horizontal. What that means, the word responsive means something special with websites and in the software industry, which means it's going to respond to, let's say, a mobile device that moves. You change the orientation, it's going to respond to that. Okay. Or you have a screen and the browser window changes, so it's going to respond to that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. So, guys, I need to go to the restroom, and I'll be back in just a moment. Kurt, answer all the questions until I get back. Go. But I want to be here as long for you guys to answer all your questions, okay? And I'll be back here in just a second. Oops, I need to...
All right. So, what do you guys think? Where are we at?
Good. We're doing good.
Jeff, how you feeling about everything today?
Good. I've learned a lot. Definitely.
Does it look like it's easier than you thought it might be when you first started thinking about this? Or
yeah,
I
think it's going to be pretty easy.
Yeah, once you start breaking this stuff down, it's not so bad, is it?
No,
not at all. Not at all. Yeah, I'm really excited about all the things that we're doing now. I'm hoping that maybe you guys, and there's a lot of people off to the side over here too. I'm hoping that some of you guys can think of some topics that we can start talking about maybe on these Saturdays, so that we can get you guys up and going. Like, what's the biggest, hardest thing for you in the moment, to get started? And I'd like to see you guys be able to. Obviously, we all know what the big elephant in the room is time, right? How much time do we have to get started? With the jobs and everything. I know it's really hard. But maybe these Saturday mornings might be a good answer to some of it. Yeah. And I guess I just want to encourage you guys to start maybe thinking about your own little app that you can work on just to kind of learn with. It could just be something really small, something to track some information. Think of some kind of thing that you guys could use to help keep track of things, or calculate something, or whatever, and go down those roads. Uncle Jimbo, can we talk about when to use vertical versus horizontal containers? What do you think about that one, Darren?
Well, so if you look at this is they use both of them. Okay, so if you need it to expand horizontally, you'd use a horizontal. If you need it to expand or respond vertically, that's when you would use those. So this is probably an intermediate topic, and a topic that I would want to have a whole session for. So I'll probably leave that to a later one, because it's not really like a beginner topic. But thanks for the question.
We've been covering so many things that aren't really beginner topics today. That's funny.
We could almost call this video a Powerapps crash course.
You really could. We've covered the entire application life cycle. I mean, except for testing and debugging. Well, we've done a little bit of that too, haven't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. I'm pretty excited, guys. This is going to be good stuff, I think.
All right, guys. Well,
guys, for some reason, YouTube thinks you're going to like this video next. Let's see if they're right. Or you can select this playlist, which I've selected for you based on the content you're currently watching. Guys, gotta hurry. Click one of them. Otherwise, YouTube's going to autoplay some other video. which you probably